With a mission to deliver fiscally responsible, highly dependable services to the citizens of our community and the region with integrity and professionalism, this is the City of Albany Commission Meeting with Mayor Bo Duro, Mayor Pro Tem John Howard, Ward 1, Matt Fuller, Ward 2, BJ Fletcher, Ward 3, Chad Warbington, Ward 4, Bob Langstaff Jr., Ward 5,
Nice.
Demetrius Young, Ward 6,
That's what Sonia did it.
City Manager Sharon Subadan, City Clerk Sonia Talbert, and City Attorney Nathan Davis. This is the City of Albany Commission Meeting.
Good morning. We'll call the first work session of November 2020 to order. We have moved this meeting from Tuesday to Thursday because of the election. If we could have the roll call, Mr. Hicks.
Ward 1.
Here.
Ward 2.
Here.
Ward 3.
Here.
Ward 4.
Ward 4's here.
Ward 5.
Here.
Ward 6.
Here.
Mayor.
Present. The first item on the agenda is a hearing on an alcohol license application submitted for Club Frozen Bar and Lounge by Radium Auto Sales LLC. Mr. Vamper is the agent. Mr. Kelvin Vamper is the agent. I think we previously considered this application, and staff advised us that this was a local street, and therefore it did not meet the criteria for on-premises alcohol license. We did not take any vote on it. I guess Mr. Norman can speak to it, and before we go, after Mr. Norman speaks, we'll ask Ms. Davis to explain us, walk through the chronology of what has transpired beyond the commission. So can you give us some background, Mr. Norman?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
This is an application by Radium Springs Auto Sale LLC doing business at Club Frozen Bar and Grill at 1020 Flint Avenue. It was an application submitted for consumption of on-premise consumption of alcohol, beer, and wine by Kevin Vamper at 2811 Winterwood Avenue. This is a nightclub. The planning department identified this location zone as C2 in Ward 3. The GJOT classification for this street was classified as a local street based on Ordinance 6-75, paragraph 2, states that on-premise consumption locations must be located on an arterial or collector street. Therefore, that this application did not meet the criteria to receive an alcohol license.
And just for background, we have a map, Mr. Norman. Most of Flint Avenue would qualify as an arterial street, right?
Yes, sir. Flint Avenue from Washington Street all the way to Pine Avenue classifies as a collector street, but the portion of Flint Avenue from Pine Avenue towards Slappy classifies as a local street.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Norman, Mayor Pro Tem?
No question at this time.
Commissioner Fuller?
No questions.
Commissioner Fletcher?
No questions.
Commissioner Warbington?
No questions.
Commissioner Langstaff?
No questions.
Commissioner Young?
I just wanted to make sure if they could get that map on the broadcast so people can know exactly where we're talking about. And if you can't, just as explanation, this is the particular street. If everybody knows that where the railroad track goes across Slappy, right at about Million, there's a small street right by the USA restaurant supply store that goes and connects with Flint. I guess Flint. That's Flint Avenue, but it connects with Pine Avenue. Were they able to get that up? No.
Well, that's
On the
exhibit
right.
3. We'll have Mr. Maples available to testify to that as well as Mr. Norton. Thank you.
Okay.
Is that
That's
okay?
it, Mr. Mayor.
There we have it, right there. You see it?
Yeah. I just wanted to see if they could get on the broadcast so people could see that map, but there it is. It's on there.
You want to highlight what area we're talking about?
I thought I just did.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Norman. Ms. Davis, could you give us some additional background? No, Miss Davis, I'm sorry. You with us, Miss Davis?
Good, Carrie.
She appears to be muted. I'm not sure if she's having trouble unmuting.
Okay, I guess.
Paul, are you able to get on? We can't hear Carrie for some reason.
Well, I thought Ms. Davis was this. I was going to let her, but now, Ms. Davis, if you've explained to the commission and any viewers what we're about to do,
Yes, sir.
and give us some advice on how we should proceed.
All right. If I could, exhibit number 1, first slide, just want to put in the record, appropriate notice was given to Mr. Vamper for the hearing. There it is. All right. And exhibit number or slide 2, please.
Mayor Dura.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I am sorry about that. For some reason, my computer crashed right when I was trying to unmute. So I'm on Paul's computer, so I'm appearing as Paul, but it's me. Are you ready for me, or do you want to continue where you were?
Well, let me hold on, Ms. Davis.
Okay.
Ms. Davis, could we digress and hear from Ms. Davis at the planning department?
Yes, sir. The pertinent exhibits, if you want to look at them as part of her testimony, it's exhibits 4A and 4B. If you want to ask for those to be pulled up at some point. Thank you.
Okay, we'll do that. IT, could we pull up 4A and 4B? 4A first, I guess. Okay, Ms. Davis, if you could introduce yourself and give us some background, then we'll get these exhibits up for you.
Yes, sir. My name is Carrie Davis. I'm the transportation planner over with DART's MPO. So I'm one of the 2 staff members of the MPO, as well as a member of the planning staff. The MPO is a metropolitan planning organization. Any city, county, or area that has 50,000 or more people has an MPO present to review transportation related issues. So chronologically, after the city commission decided not to move forward with the alcohol license, Mr. Vamper then came to planning and development to ask for a functional classification change on the area of the roadway where his business is located. At that point, we went back and we found out the history of the road and why that portion of the road had been excluded from the original, from the remaining parts of Flint Avenue, because part of this street is a one-way street. The traffic counts did not support the the change at the time that the original functional classification was done. So then we looked at all of the information about that portion of the road again. We did new traffic counts. And again, those traffic counts did not support the changing of that portion of the road.
Okay.
We brought it to.
Excuse me, Mr. Could we pull up Exhibit 3 so Ms. Davis could refer to that? Okay, Ms. Davis, go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You have a illustration there.
Okay. And so at this point, it went to our technical committee meeting, and our technical committee meeting can only make recommendations to the policy board. The policy board holds all of the power to actually make policy decisions. So the technical committee is made up of staff members. So engineering is typically there, planning is there, the police department is represented from all 4 jurisdictions. So they are to make technical recommendations to the policy committee. I do want to say that that vote was not unanimous in the technical committee. We had people that abstained, we had people that did not vote for it. However, he did have a majority vote, which is why it was passed on to the policy committee. Once it got to the policy committee didn't pass a motion for that to even go forward. So the motion died on the floor because nobody was willing to make the motion to move it forward, which is the first step in getting the functional classification changed. So therefore, and I do also want to add that those minutes from the September meeting have not been adopted. Those minutes are just draft minutes that will be adopted in January. So we just want to make sure that it's very clear about how things happened in regards to the functional classification change request.
Okay. Could we just have Exhibit 4A pulled up and Ms. Davis explain to us what that is?
I absolutely will. These are the minutes. These are the preliminary draft minutes for our technical coordinating committee. And if you will look under functional classification change, Mr. Vampers was the first request. He has circled passes, but if you continue to read that bullet point, it says passes a recommendation to policy committee. So we weren't saying that the functional classification was passed. We are saying that the recommendation to send it to the policy committee was passed.
Okay. Could we pull up 4B? And Ms. Davis, would you explain to us what constitutes the policy committee?
The members that constitute the policy committee?
Yes, ma'am. Who serves on it?
Okay, yes, sir, I can. So you have, again, the engineering department from the city of Albany, as well as the engineering department from Dougherty County. You have a representative from Lee County who does their engineering reports. Paul Forgy serves as the technical committee chairperson. Then we have people from the sheriff's department, from the police department, in both Dougherty and Lee County that serve on this board as well. You have GDOT staff from the district office in Tifton. You have staff from the Georgia Department of Transportation's Planning Commission that are also a part of that committee.
Okay. All right. Mr. Davis, did you intend to call Ms. Davis as a witness?
You did a good job, Mayor. And
well, I'm sorry.
No,
I was
fine.
just thinking with the background information.
Yeah,
but
no, that was exactly what I was going to cover. But I think we ought to let Mr. Vamper ask any questions he might have of Ms. Davis, as well as Nathaniel Norman, and then we'll get to Mr. Maples and we'll be finished.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah,
No problem.
because I did have one question I wanted to address if I could.
Yep, Mr. Vamper, could I know that could I go around the commission and then we'll give you a chance to question both Mr. Norman and Ms. Davis?
That's fine.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem, any questions for Ms. Davis?
Davis.
Ms. Davis, good morning. How you do?
Good morning. I'm well. How are you?
All right. Can you elaborate again how many members are on the policy committee?
On the policy committee, there are 9 members.
So they all and stay in the city or the county of Dougherty County?
No. So again, the MPO covers the city of Albany, Dougherty County, southern portion of Lee County, and the city of Leesburg. So those 9 policy members are, and I can tell you exactly who they are. So the mayor of the city of Albany, the mayor of Leesburg, the county commission chair of all jurisdictions, the city manager, the county managers are also included in that.
Okay, thank you very kindly here.
You're very welcome.
Commissioner Fuller?
No questions.
Mr. Fletcher?
No questions.
Mr. Worthington?
Yes, Ms. Davis, on that section of Flint, you stated that it was partially one way. Can you explain the complexities of that street and why and how? Because I personally, I'm on that street a lot, and I even get confused. So what's the situation with all that?
Right. The portion immediately that you enter into is a 2-way street, but then it turns into a 1-way street.
It enters off of what is 2-way? Off of Pine?
I'm gonna defer for a second to Bruce to give a better description.
Okay, this is Bruce Maples. Am I okay to speak, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Warburton, as you come off of US 19, which is Slappy Boulevard, you're right there at a railroad track crossing, which is a dangerous situation at best, for most things. So when you come off of Slappy, when you exit off of Slappy and you go basically in a northeast direction, the first section from Flint Avenue, from Slappy Boulevard to the first street, which I think is Harding, is 1-way street. After you leave Harding and you continue going to Pine Avenue, it transitions into a 2-way street. And then it's 2-way when you get to Pine Avenue.
Okay. And then there's one more complexity, Mr. Maples. At Pine Avenue, you cannot turn left, right? Correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Left, right? That's a confusing statement. You can't turn left.
You cannot turn going towards the Krispy Kreme.
Okay. So if I'm at the Harding intersection, I can only turn right, and then I can only turn right on Pine.
Yes, sir. That's my recollection.
Okay. So has the city ever considered closing the street, cul-de-sacking it at Slappy? Have we ever? It's just, in addition to what we're talking about here, this is a very confusing street.
Yeah. It never has come up in my tenure here about closing it. And there's one additional note that everybody needs to be made aware of is this street is actually based on an easement agreement we have with Norfolk Southern, or what was the railroad back then, Central Georgia. It's actually constructed much like Roosevelt is from, a portion of it is on railroad right of way. All of it is on railroad right of way.
Okay. And then one more question: for a street to be considered for a classification change, such as this one, to be a collector street, are there limitations of 1-way versus 2-way, right turn versus left turn that limits egress, outgress? Is there anything
there are a lot of considerations that DOT and Federal Highway would take into consideration as far as the classification of it, any modifications to it. It would be the total traffic. It would be what you just said, the 1-way situation, the restriction on turning movements. All those things would be taken into consideration as to how they would go about evaluating any kind of reclassification or classification on any road that you have in the city of Albany.
Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Mr. Langstaff, any questions for Ms. Davis?
No questions.
Commissioner Young?
No question.
Good morning, Mr. Vamper.
Interrupt and add something with Bruce?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Maples.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Exhibit 3, would you pull that back up, please, the slide of the map we just had? Mr. Maples, you are not only the director for, I'll say, engineering, you're a managing director for engineering and planning. Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement. Yes, sir.
All right, sir. And do you recognize this state functional map? It's
Yes, sir,
Exhibit 3.
I do. It appears to be the one that I printed out and provided to you in an
Yes, sir.
email.
And this is the one your office uses, and the other departments such as Nathaniel Norman's rely on this map for definitions of streets in Albany. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir. It's we're used to using, since I've been in engineering since 1978, we used to use paper maps, but now the DOT has gone to a GIS function with an app on their webpage. And this is the state DOT functional classification map that anybody uses to refer to any road classification in the state of Georgia.
Thank you very much. And is it a fair statement? This map shows the portion of Flint we're here about today, 1020 Flint is a local road.
Yes, sir. If you notice, you'll see the red US Highway 19 running north and south, and then you see a green, which is State Route 234, which is Guillenville Road. And
Yes,
then
sir.
you see a green, which is Pine Avenue, that turns in and continues. That gray line where there's a little dot right there that we highlighted, that is the portion of Flint Avenue that Club Frozen is located on, which runs between US Highway 19, State Route 234, which is North Slappy Boulevard, and Pine Avenue. And that's the gray indication. If you pulled it up on the app, you could actually click on that line, and it will come up and it will actually state that it is a local road.
Thank you. And I guess from a plain speak standpoint, that where you make that right turn, as you pointed out, going north on Slappy, that's the yellow building, USA Equipment.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And for the record, you are a PE, a engineer recognized by the state?
Yes, sir, I am.
And you graduated from Georgia Tech?
Yes, sir.
With an engineering degree?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Great.
Mr. Vamper, do you have any questions for Mr. Maples?
Yeah, I wanted to ask that gentleman who we was just speaking to, with all those qualifications. Sounds like you're pretty familiar with 1020 Flint Avenue. Does that road have any type of characteristics of a minor collector or maybe just a regular collector road?
In my opinion, no, sir, it does not.
None whatsoever.
No, sir. You see a lot of gray roads on there, and there's a lot of gray roads that connect minor arterial, major arterials, and others that probably have higher traffic counts and meet more qualifications than that one. But in my opinion, and there's
what I asked you characteristics, not qualifications. I said any characteristics.
Characteristics and qualifications are the same thing to me as far as a road is concerned.
Okay, but we do know that part of Flint is connected to Slappy, and what's the other road it's connected to?
Pine Avenue.
Isn't that one of the characteristics of a minor collector?
It is one of, so
okay. That's all I wanted to know. That's all I wanted to know.
But there are other characteristics
That's it. That's all I want to know. Can we continue, please?
Mr. Maple, you got to let Mr. Maples finish, Mr. Vamper, please.
So
go ahead, Mr. Maples, if you want to continue.
Well, it's like I said earlier when we asked and they were asked the question. Commissioner Warmington asked me the question. There are several things that Federal Highway and GDOT have to take into consideration, not just what it connects to. So that would be taken into consideration.
Of course. I was just wondering about the characteristics of the road. And you said you didn't see any characteristics of the road being a minor or major collector.
No, sir, I didn't say that. I said that you asked me, did I feel like it would be classified as? And I said, no. That connection between Slappy and Pine is one of the things that would be considered.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Vamper, do you have any questions for Mr. Norman?
No, but I think we was getting back to the secretary. I think her name is Miss Davis, is it?
I don't believe I'd call her a secretary, but yes, it's Miss Davis. Did you have any questions, Miss Davis?
I was just wondering about the technical meeting that we was in,
okay.
And I heard her state that it did pass, but it wasn't unanimous. I was just wondering what was the total outcome, because it was passed for a reason, and we did have more votes to have the road changed to a collector than just leaving it a minor. So I just wanted to know what was the outcome. How many votes did we have if it wasn't unanimous?
I would have to get.
Those was engineers and technicians that was in that meeting, and they all, if I recall, it was about 2 to 3 weeks that they had to just dissect the road before we got in the meeting, and they came up with the conclusion that it did pass to change the road from a local road to a minor collector. So I was just wondering what was the, I'm sure I heard you say it wasn't unanimous, but I think it was 7 votes, and out of the 7, 6 voted positive to have it changed, if I'm not mistaken.
You are mistaken. The technical committee actually has about 18 members that were there. Yeah. So, and again, the technical committee can only make a recommendation to the policy committee, which is what they did.
That's totally understandable. But it did pass through the technical department, didn't it?
The recommendation did go forward from the technical committee.
Okay, what was the outcome? I mean, okay, if it was 18,
the majority voted. The majority of the committee did vote to push the recommendation onto the policy committee.
Exactly. And what was that? What was that vote? How did it come out? Well, if it was 18 there, what it was 17, if I'm mistaken, that voted yes.
No, sir, that is not correct. And I will have to go back and
I don't recall exactly how many it was at this point, but I just would imagine that I'm sure you would. You're pretty persistent with everything else there, so I just imagine that I'm sure that you would have that information there, wouldn't you?
Yes, sir. We can pull the recording and actually give you a straight count of exactly who voted in which way.
Because if I recall, it was just one that decided that it shouldn't be pushed to the policymakers, if I'm not mistaken.
That is not correct.
Everything I tell you is incorrect, but you don't have the correct amount. That's kind of intriguing to me. I'm not understanding it.
Excuse me, Ms. Davis. Mr. Vamper, if you would ask Ms. Davis questions, but you certainly have a chance, isn't that right, Mr. Davis, to address the commissions? And if we could limit it to questions you might have for Ms. Davis. Okay,
that sounds great. That's the only question I had for her. I was just wanting to get a better understanding, because from what I gather, she most definitely remembered that it was not unanimous, but we don't have. So I mean, we can go ahead and finish this meeting, because for some reason or another, Mayor Durham, I just don't feel as though I'm being treated properly in this. I just want to be treated properly and fairly on the whole scenario. That's all I'm asking.
Well, you have that
so
right.
We can
Mr.
continue.
Yeah, yes.
That is what we're here for. Let's continue.
I mean, I can get it.
Can I follow up on one thing, Mayor, please?
Yes,
with
sir.
Ms. Davis. Carrie, you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
All right. Exhibit 4A is the technical committee, I'll call it.
Okay.
Which forwarded, is that the right term? It was forwarded to the policy committee?
That is correct.
And that's exhibit 4B. And what action, if any, was taken? And the policy committee is the one who would make the controlling type decision, isn't it?
That is correct.
All right. Did it even get a motion?
It did not.
So it just died on the agenda, literally and figuratively?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions, Mr. Vamper?
No, there's no questions at all, Mayor.
Okay. And now, Mr. Davis, Mr. Vamper gets to present evidence and make a statement. Is that correct?
That's correct. We understand all the exhibits have been properly identified, and we rest. Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor and Commissioners.
You have the floor.
Well, I think the only evidence that I for the most part that we had not addressed is I sent in a map of a club that's right around the corner from us, which is Club Yesterday's 2.0, and it was just administered license within the last 24 months. It changed ownership, and it's also indeed sitting on a local road. And for the most part, that's the only thing I had. I was just hoping and praying that this whole situation, because it's a $30,000 investment that was made by me, and I don't want to see it just go down the drain. The building was terribly. It was just a eyesore in the city, in the middle of the city. It's been remodeled, it's been renovated, roof, air conditioning, plumbing, very expensive, and it seems as though this whole situation could have been taken care of early on before all this had been done. We can go back to ordinance. I think it's 687, which states that all information should have been gathered from the city before the license, the occupational license, was even administered. With that being said, I mean, the occupational license was administered. Of course, as a business owner, we would go ahead and continue renovation. The renovation would have stopped. We would have known at that point in time that we would not be able to receive alcohol license at that location if the city or the fire marshals or whoever would have made the proper brought the proper information to our attention to let us know that we can't receive alcohol license at that location. So I really feel as though the problem doesn't persist with me. Nor me being the person to renovate this terrible this eyesore in the middle of the city. Oh, and then another thing, this place is going to employ at least 15 individuals. I mean, I don't see where it's going to be such a bad place where I'm getting so much negative feedback from everyone as opposed to initiating the liquor license. I just don't see it. I really don't, Mayor Durham. I'm not exactly sure where the negative feedback is coming from, but it doesn't seem as though this is something that's wanted. Could somebody give me some type of insight on the reason why it's just so hard to administer the license at that location?
Any other questions, Mr. Vamper, or any statements?
I mean, that question is addressed to you, Mayor Durham. In the meeting that we had for the technical meeting, and in the other meeting that we had, you sit on the board with that meeting, Mayor Durham. You do. You sit on that board, and in that meeting, you would notice that there was no motion because you spoke first. And what you told everybody in that meeting was the reason why I'm trying to get the classification changed is because I'm trying to maneuver a city ordinance. And I think that was totally incorrect. The reason why I'm trying to get the road classification changed, and then everyone followed behind your motion, being that you didn't want a motion on the address the situation no one else did. That's why it's stating that it's no motion. But that was actually totally incorrect. The classification of the road should be changed because, hey, like we say, motor oil is motor oil. That street has the qualifications of a minor collector, and that cannot be changed. That is something that's just going to be. That's a factual information. That is not no one trying to get around a city ordinance. You know, so I mean, I really feel as though I'm not being treated fairly in this situation. I mean, we've dragged this whole scenario almost a year and a half. It's been past a year just to address a situation for alcohol license at a location. Is there something I'm missing? I mean, if it is, I would change my location. I wish somebody be just frank with me and let me know what is the problem. Is it me as a business owner for 25 years? If you look at my background, I've had different businesses here in this city for the last 25 years. I'm a graduate from Albany State College. I just don't see what the fundamental issue with administering alcohol license at that location. I just don't see it.
Is that all, Mr. Vamper?
That is it, sir.
Mr. Vamper, what I'll do, we go around the table, but since you addressed those comments directly to me, I'm going to take the privilege and respond as best I can. First, I'm sorry that you feel that you have been treated unfairly. Some of my colleagues on the commission have expressed concerns in the last few months about citizens who incur substantial expense preparing properties for a business with an license, and that they are subsequently denied a license after, as you said, a substantial investment has been placed in the business or the location. And I understand it'd be easier for us to say, and as I stand to be corrected from Mr. Norman and the planning department, I believe it's a position of the city that everyone is informed that whether or not they receive a license is a matter for the city commission, and the planning department is not granting the license. But there again, we are reviewing that, and hopefully, and I am very sorry that you made an investment in this property and were subsequently denied the license. But what I want to say is, first, I'm going to ask Ms. Davis to pull that tape, because I think what you said, your recollection of what transpired is not actually correct. I think the tape's going to verify that Chairman Mathis asked what my position was, and I said that the issue had come before the city commission, and it was identified that this extension of Flint Avenue was not indeed a collector street, and therefore you were denied a license. And I didn't think it would set a good precedent for the DARTS board to revisit decisions of the city commission. So I certainly didn't say that you were trying to maneuver a city ordinance or ascribe any impromotive to what you were doing. And if you
not to interject, but that's exactly what you said, and we can pull it.
Okay,
but you can go ahead and finish.
Okay, thank you. And this, when you say you don't see it, what the negative feedback is, the truth of the matter is, Mr. Vamper, we never got to the point where we consider public support or opposition for the application of your license, because procedurally, as Mr. Norman explained earlier, this location did not qualify for an alcohol license. So that is not even a consideration that's come before the commission. And again, I'm sorry that you feel you're not being treated fairly, but there's no improper motive on my part, or I think staff's part. But that's what I have to say. And now we're going to allow the commission to ask any questions they might have of you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Good morning, Mr. Vamper. How you do this morning?
I'm just fine.
Let me ask you a question. In your statement, you mentioned that you had invested $30-some thousand in the building, right, for renovation?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
By you investing that much money into a building, would you own the building, or you would still be renting from the property owner?
I will still be leasing.
Leasing. So the $30-some thousand you invest, so you had the approval from the owner to invest that type of money, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So did he mention anything? Did he ask the question what you were going to do with the building?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if you decide to pull up, would the amount you invest in the building, would you recoup some of those resources?
Not to my knowledge. The owner of the building had the impression that there should not be any problem with having a bar or lounge, because when you pull the property up on the tax assessor's office, it actually states that property is a bar or tavern. Along with that, 36 months ago, I think, maybe 30 months ago, well, it's probably a little longer than that, or maybe a shorter period of time, there has been liquor license at that location. Several liquor license at that location, and the ordinance didn't start after the liquor license was at the location. The ordinance been there for a while. So I mean, I'm almost certain that the owner was under the impression that there should not be any problem at all having liquor license at the location.
One other question. Would you care to give us the name of the owner that owned the property?
Phil Cannon.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Fuller?
No questions.
Commissioner Fletcher?
Good morning, and I do feel like I need to say something because it is in my ward, and I am going to be as honest with you as I can be. I try to never vote if something doesn't meet the requirements, because I do feel like that is going to keep the taxpayers out of a lawsuit. Now, I will tell you this, if it ever gets rezoned or it does meet the requirements, I would be your first champion. But I'm going to be honest with you about what the neighbors are saying to you. I think you must be doing some things over there in the evening, because I've had a couple of your neighbors to send me pictures, etc. And I just want to say this to you. I don't, because I haven't seen it, so I'm surely to goodness not going to judge you for that. But, it does work. If something does meet requirements, then sometimes a neighbor can step in and get enough opposition against what you want that filters in also. So if this is a place that you're going to stay, and if you are looking at possibly trying to change something, then start off by being, a good neighbor. I was next to Charlie B's for a long time, and every Sunday morning I had to get there an hour early to simply pick up all the beer and alcohol bottles so my customers could get to me at lunch. And I'm not saying, again, I've not witnessed any of this. I'm just sort of trying to be honest with you. I do want you to know that I don't think anyone is judging you as a person, but you are dealing with a new commission now. And when it comes to crime, it seems like everybody wants to say alcohol's the number one reason. So it has gotten a little bit more difficult to get a license, and we are being a little bit more careful. But if you meet requirements, you should have an opportunity. Now, if you mess up after that opportunity, you have every right for us to come and talk with you. But if you can get them requirements met, and I'm still your commissioner of that ward, then I will try to get it across the table to pass you. But I will tell you, go to your neighbors, and I'm surely to God not going to name them out, but I do get emails from your neighbors, and they are against that location. Okay, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That's it. That's it.
Did you want to respond, Mr. Vamper?
Oh, no, that was Ms. Fletcher?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I really appreciate her speaking on the whole scenario, and I do have a lot of respect for her. She's a real nice lady, and no, I don't have anything to say. Only thing, I guess we can just go ahead and continue.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Warburton?
Hey, Mr. Vamper, this is Chad Warmington. Couple of questions. I guess, are you open for business there right now?
Yes, I am.
What are you currently operating there currently now?
Just a location that plays music, and that's for the most part. That's it. With no customers at all for the most part. Very it's very hollow, I must say. What's a bar without alcohol?
Okay, so are you currently serving alcohol at this location?
No, I don't have alcohol license.
Right. Okay. I mean, there's definitely evidence of alcohol all around the location. So I assume your customers are bringing it to the location.
Alcohol. There's evidence of alcohol around the location.
Yes, sir. I've physically seen it with my own eyes.
Well, you know that location right there is in the middle of the city, and you have okay. Another thing you may have seen was a lot of traffic through that location, just walking traffic. I mean, it's at a horrendous amount of people and guys and you know they just walk through that way, and it's a possibility that someone has thrown some bottles down or whatever, however it goes. But as far as me selling any alcohol or knowing about any alcohol being administered on the location, that's not true.
Okay, so these events that you're having, you've got a pretty strict policy: no alcohol brought in, no alcohol allowed.
Events? Who said that I was having events?
Well, not events, but I mean, you have customers coming in the business. I mean,
yeah, maybe one day a week.
Are you selling things, or are you just providing a gathering location?
Yeah, well, I mean, what we're doing at this point in time is really so obsolete that it's ridiculous. I mean, we're open maybe one day a week. You know, I mean, the bills has to be paid, and on top of that, we stopped doing that because we're actually losing. We're not being able to profit at all. It's kind of hard to run. It's kind of hard to run a bar without alcohol. That's the bottom line there.
But right now, you're currently trying to run a bar without alcohol. Is that right?
Well, we have the name as a bar, but we're kind of trying to transition the location into a event center, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it certainly does.
And what we're doing is we'll lease the location out to individuals, and that's basically just to pay the bills.
Okay.
Would that be a problem or anything?
No. I mean, there's event centers all around town, you know, and so you know, my concern is just the evidence that I've seen is there's definitely alcohol consumption going on there, and you know, whether that's being sold there or brought onto the property. I agree with you. My business is 2 blocks away, so I'm constantly picking up beer cans and different things in the gutters around my building. So yeah, certainly some of the trash and litter may be from pedestrians walking, but definitely there's a large amount that has, and it appears, I guess you just kind of opened the last couple of weeks, so it's not something you've been open for a while, at least what I've observed. So certainly last couple of weekends, it appears you've got more activity going on there than normal.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Well,
all right.
If you don't mind, where's your business? Yeah.
I'm over on Cleveland Street.
Oh, okay. And what's the name of it?
My business is called Shutters Plus.
Oh, okay. All right. That sounds great. You're in the neighborhood.
Right behind Short and Park. Yes, sir.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. Well, I guess we can continue if all the questions is addressed.
Yes, sir. That's all I got, Mayor.
Commissioner Langstaff?
No questions.
Commissioner Young?
Yes, sir, Mr. Vamper. I really do, feel for you in terms of your investment And I really don't think, that this necessarily falls on you, per se. This is a problem with process that we allow too many things, in our city processes that fall down to politics and not just a simple process. You should have known before you decided to make your investment that the liquor license was not a given. I've been saying this for months now, that the city commission votes on liquor licenses. There are stipulations to liquor licenses. There's a approval process to liquor license. So, for whatever reason, we're not getting that message across to business owners who come and apply for liquor licenses. We're not getting them that message. Somehow that is falling on, deaf ears for us to do a better job to say this is an approval process. So like you said, when you go and get your occupational license and you get approved for that, there should somebody should say, and that may still fall on the purview of the business owner, that if I'm going to have an establishment that serves alcohol and that's my primary business, I need to know if I can get that alcohol license. I need to understand that there is a possibility that there is a policy, there is an approval process, and there is a vote that may not allow me to do the business that I want. And until we stop, we've also been talking about a moratorium for months that we can't seem to generate enough support for to get all this stuff hashed out. And we're still going to see other business owners hurt. It's not an issue of a new commission or new commissioners. We need proper process. We need proper policy and proper planning so people know what they're dealing with before they make investments. That's what we need. And then stuff won't fall down to a political decision about somebody's business. And I think that's the frustration that Mr. Vamper is showing here. And then the other question I did want to ask is, and this is probably for Mr. Norman, is this location zoned for commercial? Mr. Norman?
Well, I can answer that question. It is a zone C2 and it is a zone for commercial.
Okay. Well, I kind of wanted Mr. Norman to answer since he's the
And I do respect what you're saying, and I totally understand what you're coming with the scenario with the process issue, and maybe this me also addressing my situation. I'm not just wanting to look at it as though, well, I won't look like it. That's not how my whole philosophy works in life. I would appreciate it maybe if the process would change so that the next person in line would be able to through the process much more smoothly, as opposed to being taken through the situation how I'm being taken through. That would be just fine also. But I mean, if we take a look at the ordinance 687, it also states in the city ordinance that all the problems with the inspections should be taken up and given to the city commissioners. Everything. It states that all the issues that could arise or be addressed with that location, which I would think that the road scenario would fall in that category, should have been taken up and addressed by the city commissioners. Everything should have been brought to you all at forefront. I guarantee you, if that process that you all have now would have been followed in the proper manner, then we wouldn't be in this situation right now, because what they would have said is, well, Mr. Vamper, we're going to let you know, we do understand that your occupancy license does say that you're opening up a bar lounge, but at this time, that location will not be able to have alcohol license.
Right.
And that's the problem. And I don't think that's the problem with process. I think that's the problem with procedure. Someone's not following the proper procedures opening up.
Well, Mr. Vamper, it's also another P. It's the problem is politics, because as most of us know, your location has been a club for many, many years. When I was in my clubbing years, I've been to that location when it was a club. So, and nobody said that was a ulterior street or a minor collector street. That was no problem. It was a club. It had been a club, but now that politics is playing a role in somebody's interest versus your interest, which is what happens. That's not a abnormal thing. Then we kind of comb the details for what might stop this from happening, because I don't want that to happen. But we have to do a better job with our policy and procedure. And I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your investment, and just hopefully we can find a better situation for you. But thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Davis, you still with us? Ms. Davis isn't with us.
I'm here.
Yeah, Ms. Davis, could we have those that portion of that meeting typed verbatim? I want to get Mr. Vamper a copy, but I also want the commission to have a copy, because I think Mr. Vamper's recollection of what I said and what transpired is not completely accurate. Can we get that?
Yes, sir, we can. And I also went back to the recording to get the numbers. And there were 5 yeses, 1 abstention, and 3 noes.
Could you repeat that?
There were 5 yes, 3 noes, and 1 abstention.
Okay. Did you want to respond to that, Mr. Vamper?
No, sir. I heard it.
Okay. Okay. That's the answer to your question. Now, Mr. Davis, how should we proceed from here?
The matter is now ripe for a vote at the November 24 meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Did you hear that, Mr. Vamper?
Yes, sir, I have.
Okay. Well, with that, can we close the hearing, Mr. Davis? Okay. We'll proceed to the next item on the agenda. Usually we have our speaker appear first. I don't know why we had the hearing before that, but Mr. Finkelstein, you with us?
I am, but the administrator has cut off the video. If you want to see me as well as hear me, you'll need to have the administrator start the video.
Okay, there we are.
Okay. Are you ready for me?
Yes, sir. You have the floor. You got 5 minutes, Mr. Finkelstein. Good morning.
Thank you very much. The floor happens to be in a room in my house at the moment. I'm not sure if you folks are in the city commission or not, but thank you for having me, Mayor Duro. And I'm not sure if your last person knew the correct pronunciation of your name, but I hope I got it right. I'm back here for the second time in 4 months, pretty much the same subject, which is police reform. As you folks probably remember, I'm handling a case involving a young man who was arrested 3 years ago and spent 61 days in the Dougherty County Jail for a crime he did not commit. I was curious to know how much the city had paid an Atlanta law firm, Freeman, Mathis, and Gary, to defend that case. So I took the opportunity under the Open Records Act to get copies of the bills. And I have to say I was a bit shocked to find out on a lawsuit which has yet to be in court, give me a second, which has not had the first item of discovery exchange, not a single piece of paper, not a single, you have to pardon me, the yard man decided this is the moment to start up the machinery. Hopefully it'll turn off in a second. Not a single interrogatory answered, not a single deposition has been taken. Have not seen the inside of a courtroom, virtually or otherwise. $62,000 is what the city has paid the law firm of Freeman, Mathis, and Gary on a lawsuit which hasn't even started yet, to be frank. Don't know how much more they've charged since May, because that was only through May. That was on a case where they filed motions to dismiss and whatnot. And I've sent you folks an email. The email itself has a body to it that has certain information. The attached to it were copies of those bills, a copy of the 11th Circuit opinion that the city's attorneys lost. The case is back in the district court again, ready to start for the first time. And I have a letter that basically outlines why I'm addressing you. And the thought occurred to me that if the city had hired a consultant and asked that consultant, what is the worst possible way we could handle cases involving persons that were harmed by actions of the police department? That consultant would probably tell you the following. When innocent people are arrested and jailed or people are physically injured, and the facts come to light, number one, don't admit doing anything wrong. Don't take any steps to find out what went wrong. Don't apologize to the persons harmed. Don't take any steps to deal with personnel who caused the harm. Don't take any steps to change procedures to fix the mistakes. And if a harmed person requests relief, ignore that request. If suit is filed, hire the most expensive Atlanta law firm you can find, which will put their own self-interest and maximizing the money they can make off the case over the best interest of the client or the city, which is paying the bills. Fight to delay the case. Fight to dismiss the case on a technicality such as qualified immunity or some other technical defense rather than ever meeting the merits of the case. And do no oversight of the handling of the cases against the police department to find out what could have been done to prevent the harm to the innocent person, to prevent the repetition of mistakes, to resolve the case short of protracted and expensive litigation.
1 minute, Mr. Finkelstein.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just 1 minute. I'm sorry.
Oh, I have 1 minute. I thought you were asking me to wait a minute. Okay. Do no oversight of the handling of the cases against the police department and find out what could have been wrong. Because that's exactly what has been occurring. This case is just the most recent example. I understand Joe Godfrey has filed a lawsuit involving somebody else that was harmed by actions of the police department. I've had mine over the years. And the reason I'm here is to ask the city, what have you done? What are you doing to prevent this from happening in the future? That's it. Thank you. You're on mute. I cannot.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Any questions for Mrs. Finkelstein, Mayor Pro Tem?
No question. Thank you, Mr. Finkelstein.
You're welcome, sir.
Commissioner Fuller?
No questions.
Mr. Fletcher?
No questions.
Mr. Warburton?
No questions.
Mr. Langstaff?
No questions.
Mr. Young?
No questions, but thank you for your comments, Mr. Finkelstein.
You are welcome, sir.
Ms. Finkelstein, thank you for appearing this morning. We appreciate what you have to say, and I think I can speak for my colleagues. We actually are concerned about keeping people safe and protecting people's civil liberties. Sometimes mistakes occur, and I guess we can certainly take to heart your recommendations, and reevaluate how we respond. But I can tell you, the 10 months I've been here, there aren't many weeks that go by that I don't get an anti-litem notice. So, but we're going to try to do better. Thank you, Mr. Finkelstein.
You're welcome. You have a good day, folks.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a legal matter, emergency management agreement, page 12 of your packet. And we'll hear from Mr. Dura. If everyone, I think the city clerk prepared a notebook, and basically what we have here is some background of we discussed the city's emergency management agency and the process at our recent retreat in September. We set up a task force. Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioner Fletcher, and myself met, I think, 3 or 4 times. Chief Scott's been with us. We've considered ordinances from other cities. What I have here, and I won't go over it in detail, is I kind of laid out the background. The first time we talked, Commissioner Fletcher said we need an understanding of House Bill 489, how this interplays with the emergency management agreement. And I was of the opinion that the two, there's not a real correlation there. I was incorrect. And that we have some background, but basically every local government has to have an emergency management agency that's approved by the state. And the sanction for that is if a local government does not have such an organization, it is ineligible for reimbursement from the state. And that law was passed in, I think, 91. So, of course, the city and county passed a joint resolution. You have that. I think that's tab 1 in the notebook in 1992. And it sets forth the understanding of Albany and Dougherty County. The mayor can individually or jointly with the chairman of the county commission declare a state of emergency. The ordinance further specifies that the chairman, with the concurrence of the mayor, can nominate for appointment by the governor fire chief to be the head of the EMA. And that ordinance was passed in 1992. We've had very few amendments to the emergency management ordinance, and those have not been substantive in nature. If you start looking at other cities, you see deficiencies that we have in our emergency management agreement. Several of them have been pointed out in the presentation. One is that the city commission basically has no involvement during the state of emergency. That, in my opinion, is completely inappropriate. When I was on the commission between 2000 and 2007, it's my recollection that we never had a state of emergency during that time. And so I was frankly unfamiliar with this process. But the presentation talks briefly about the Service Delivery Strategy, the Service Delivery Act, which we all know is House Bill 489. And of course, what we're doing here is the legislature says we are taking action to prevent duplication of services. We're all aware of these joint agreements. How is that relevant to us? Well, Chief Scott told us at the retreat that the paperwork clearly says, clearly unequivocally states that the city is responsible for emergency management. I was surprised at that because it was my understanding that the county, and I don't feel that way, just I guess a common misperception. I'd never seen it in writing, but Chief Scott has provided us with the service delivery strategy and some background here. The first service delivery strategy had to be filed in July of 1999, and then local governments have to file an update, an amended service delivery strategy at regular intervals, no more than 10 years. And in Dougherty County filed updates, the first one in 2006 and the second one in 2007. Those are tabs 2 and 3 in your presentation. You'll see that tab 2, what I did, these booklets that were provided to me by the fire chief, I took out all the ordinances and other supporting documents that are included. And I guess these can be made available to you, but I really think they are helpful to keep, just to know what the agreements are. I think it'd be an excellent reference as it is. But you see tab 2, it talks about emergency management services. And it says the city will provide emergency management services countywide as per Joint County Resolution 9112 and City Ordinance 92111. These services will be provided through the Albany Fire Department. The cost of operation of the service, minus any state or federal grants, will continue to be divided equally between the city and the county in their general funds. And here, the following page, it specifically states, emergency management services will be provided countywide by a single service provider, and that's the city. And that form was actually signed by Mr. Crowdis, who at that point in time was the county administrator. The 2007 update, the only thing it says about emergency management services is that is one of the services which are, and it's all bold, extended without change. The meaning here is that the city is responsible for emergency management services in not only the city, but the county. Now, there is a problem because it says that the mayor and the chairman of the county commission are responsible for direction and control. And here's a problem we confronted in March. I mean, you got the letter that I sent to you. But no, let me go ahead. When Chairman Cohilas declared a state of emergency, and come to find out, the chairman cannot declare a state of emergency separately. The mayor can, but not the chairman. But be that as it may, Chairman Cohilas declared a state of emergency in March, established task force. They were having meetings. It's my recollection that neither the city manager nor myself were invited to those meetings. And I can certainly say I was not invited to the meetings. And then I started doing the research and found out that, in point of fact, only the mayor could individually declare a state of emergency. From that, I had a discussion with Chief Scott. Chief Scott was under the opinion that, as most of us were, that the chairman, the director of the EMA, and the basis of that, of Chief Scott's misunderstanding, is a letter that the chairman wrote to Homer Bryson, the director of GEMA, back in August of last year. That's tab 4, and you'll see that it says Mr. Chief Scott will report directly to myself, being Mr. Cohilas, and the Dougherty County Board of Commissioners. Chief Scott can correct me if I'm wrong. I wrote him a letter in March after I found out that the proper procedure was not being followed, following which myself and the city manager were joined or started participating in these meetings of the task force. Chief Scott gave this presentation to our committee meeting, and he said he would provide these documents, which what Chief Scott's provided me would be tab 2, tab 3, and tab 4. The letter I sent's tab 5, but then we go back, and Chief Scott was kind enough to provide recommendations, and then he provided a recommended ordinance. I think that's number 7. 1 is from the county, but number 8, I believe, is for a municipality. And my concern here is that this is something that needs to be revisited, and I think amended for various reasons. I mentioned earlier that the commission the body needs to have some involvement in the state of emergency. One omission here is that there is no sunset clause on the state of emergency. In other words, it extends until the mayor or individually or jointly with the chairman says the state of emergency is rescinded. Some ordinances, the ones we've looked at, Savannah actually requires that the mayor go to the city commission within 72 hours and obtain approval. And it also authorizes the city commission, over the objection of the mayor, majority of the city commission can terminate the state of emergency. But there are other concerns here, such as what, if any, involvement should the city commission have in during the state of emergency, and then that's another issue. Likewise, it's not coordinated with a statewide state of emergency, which I don't recall there being a statewide state of emergency in my lifetime prior to this. I may be incorrect, but also a national state of emergency. But the committee, I frankly had discussed the possibility of the city having its own emergency management operation. That is a right that municipalities have under state law. If you look at the very beginning, we look at section 38.327A1, a city can separate from the county. The other members of the commission felt that what we needed to do before we took any drastic measure like that, to see how we could approve on what we have. And with that, I'll certainly let Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioner Fletcher express their thoughts, and then we could hear from Chief Scott, and then we'll go around the table and have a discussion. Mayor Pro Tem, do you want to say anything about this?
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for forming this committee and looking at a lot of these different opinions from the past. I think it's a step in the right direction. The reason why I say that is that we certainly need to have our own task force, and the reason why is that because the bulk of the population in Albany and Dougherty County reside in the city of Albany, Georgia, and about between 15 and 20 some thousand are resident of the county. So I think that we all aware that we live in an area that is prone to hurricanes, tornadoes of the past, and that it would be prudent for us to have our own emergency management system, because what have happened in the past between the city and the county, we certainly need to be in agreement. But I think at the same time that what Chief Scott have provided to us, and I think that we should do it as soon as possible to have our own emergency management agreement.
Mr. Fletcher?
Well, you know, I think what I'm going to do, Mayor, is I just got to text back to back, and this is probably what is the spin on this is going to be. So I'm going to answer them text live. No, this is not anything that our mayor is trying to do against our county administrator, Chris Cohelas. This is a problem that I was first aware of when Hurricane Michael come about, and we just really didn't have a seat at the table. We didn't have a say, and we were handed what we was told was the policy of the city, and we accepted it. So I am grateful that the mayor brought it up. I'm grateful that Chief Scott did what, you know, we asked of him, because it brought a lot of things to light. You know, we do need to look at this, and we do need to do our part and sit down and talk as a city and a commission on what's best for this community. No, I'd never sat in a discussion where the mayor or Commissioner Howard or myself said we want to be part of the day-to-day operations. I think that the city manager and the department heads do a pretty good job themselves. I don't think this is micromanaging anyone. I think it's simply, if God forbid we have another disaster or state of emergency, we're not left out. And to me, this is what the time that we spent on doing this was about. And thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Commissioner Howard, and thank you, Chief Scott, for helping me understand a little better about what our policy says. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fletcher. Chief Scott, did you want to address this?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I do. Good morning, everyone. What I have presented, I believe is critically important. I believe it's important for us to clarify the roles and expectations of both city and county government so that when the next incident strikes, we will be able to respond in a coordinated way. And also, we will have a clear understanding of who is ultimately responsible for emergency management in Albany and Dougherty County. I do believe that there is great benefit from maintaining a combined city-county approach to emergency management. I have in my communication to you, I have described how I believe it could work. It will work effectively. I believe it will be coordinated. It will allow for involvement and input from the county. And I think we would have a really coordinated approach to how we handle disasters in our community. I won't go through all of it again. The mayor's done a great job in laying it out. Though I have defined the roles during an emergency declaration process. One other person that assisted, as well as this has all been ran through Mr. Nathan Davis as well. He and I have communicated on this about what it is that I've proposed in the direction that I believe that we should go in. I've gone through and defined the roles of both the EMA director, the mayor, as well as the chairman. The roles of the EMA director under a disaster. I've laid out if an event happens, if we have an incident that occurs, it's important that the management and coordination of the incident is handled in a way, a coordinated way, so that it can be have the right oversight, so that it can be tracked, and so that we can move in a recovery period that I think would be positive for our community. And I've laid that out as well. Now, I will move to the end, which I think I want to make sure that, and I'll continue to have discussions with the task force as well. But I do believe that it will be advantageous to us to have a new ordinance describing what has been laid out by the mayor this morning, as well as the communication that I provided. I think that it is necessary that we review the letter in which the mayor referred to, the reporting relationship. I think that has to be clearly defined, because in an emergency situation, you do not want, you want the clear lines of communication to be set up. I've laid that out in the communication, and I believe that is the way that we should go forward. I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to lay out the emergency declaration process, as well as the roles and responsibilities during a disaster. So, so thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll stand by certainly for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Chief Scott. Mayor Pro Tem, any questions for?
No, just want to thank him for looking at the emergency management operation. And I agree that we certainly need to draft a new ordinance that to spell out in the coming, I'm gonna say the coming weeks, because we're still in process of having hurricanes and tornadoes from the east, from the ocean to the Gulf of Mexico. So we need to do it. And I will be one of those that will certainly say that this new draft should take place as soon as possible. Thank you, Chief Scott.
Welcome, sir.
Commissioner Fuller?
No questions.
Commissioner Fletcher?
No questions.
Coach Warrington.
Yeah, just so this joint resolution that was signed in 1992.
Interrupt you. Can we ask Chief Scott and then we'll go around with discussion?
Right, this is a question to Chief Scott.
I'm sorry.
So Chief, so this 1992 joint resolution, there's been no changes, additions, new joint, nothing. We're still operating off of the 1992 document.
Only where indicated, Commissioner, emergency management is one of those areas that was continued without change. The mayor made mention of it being in bold print there. Now, there have been other adjustments in the overall service delivery agreement, which if you look at the very beginning, it will identify those areas that are being adjusted as well as those areas that are being continued without change. And so as far as emergency management is concerned, there have been no changes. That's correct.
Okay, so if we have evolved from the 1992 document, it's not based on an official document. It's just based on, I guess, policy creep or whatever you want to call it. We've just kind of evolved or changed slightly from the original document from 1992.
We did. That's correct. Yes. That's why I strongly recommend that we have an ordinance approved, as well as something we have not talked about this morning, but the local emergency operations plan, the big plan that you would operate by, this emergency operations plan. I think that it needs to be formally approved because we have searched both the city and county for some type of documentation that shows that it was ever approved by the city commission or the county commission, and I just cannot find any proof that it was ever approved. However, we do operate off the emergency operations plan. That's how we operate. It's on record with the state. But as far as going through that approval process, I just have not found that. And I think that with the changes that we are suggesting today, I think it would be prudent that we approve the local emergency operations plan as well. And then I will then transmit that to the state as an updated document representing all of Georgia.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Appreciate that. That's it, Mayor.
Commissioner Langstaff.
No question.
Commissioner Young.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chief. How much did you do any collaboration with the county on this? Any? Or I guess that's a question for the subcommittee as well.
Commissioner Young, I have worked with the task force under direction of the mayor through the city manager, and that is my level as far as involving anyone. All the research that I've done over the period of time, we did involve the county in trying to search for documents necessary, which we could not find, as I just mentioned. But that is the level of involvement that I can think of.
Anybody else? Yeah. Well, I just wanted, I guess what I was looking for, because I do think we do have the need to do this. In as much as, you know, I do think with whatever issues that have arisen, the mayor, the county chairman have done an excellent job with the emergency situation. And of course, Chief Scott in the pandemic. And I think, you know, the community, of course, would still want to see, you know, that same type of spirit of cooperation. When emergency happens, it doesn't just happen to the county, it doesn't just happen to the city, it happens to all of us. And I hope we can just kind of keep that in mind as we go through the process to just find, you know, wherever we can, you know, some collaboration or you know, just to work with each other on this. I do believe that the city does have a need to have a plan that reflects its responsibilities and allows for the responsibilities of our board and our departments and resources. So, but to just, let the community know that, we're in this together, and we want to make a plan that reflects that.
Commissioner Young, I will just add that what you see, the presentation from me, was requested of me to give my personal thoughts about how I believe, based on my knowledge, experience, how I believe it should work. And I did not consult from the county in making that presentation to you, to the mayor. But however, what you've seen, the working relationship that has occurred, in my initial remarks, I said that I believe that it is advantageous to us to have a city-county approach to emergency management.
Yes, sir. I did hear that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And the only thing I was saying is through this process, I don't know how we could do that, or do collaboration with them, or just kind of figure out, where we could talk to them and say, okay, this is what we need. This is what we need to have for, us to feel good about this plan, and just kind of iron those things out. So, we can show that collaboration that the chief mentioned at the beginning of his presentation.
Okay, if we could proceed with discussion, Mayor Pro Tem.
No further observation.
Commissioner Fuller, any comments, concerns?
Further? No, sir.
Commissioner Fletcher.
No, sir. No, thank you.
Commissioner Warrington.
The only comment I would have is, even based on the mayor's comment, is some level of board involvement, and not to slow the wheels of emergency down, but in terms of inclusion of commissioners, and even having the sunset clause, like you said, that would be my input going forward. Of course, when you look at 1992 and what I guess Mayor Keenan was the mayor at that time, that's where you start, just like y'all said. But the biggest input I would have is, as a commissioner, I just don't want to hear about an EMA declaration on WLB. I think as commissioners, we should be involved in that. And then we should be involved in setting a timeline, whether it be 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, just like the governor, when he declares, I'm bounded by his legislation. So that would be my input from a commission standpoint. Thank you.
Commissioner.
Comments.
Commissioner Young.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, is there any way we can, for the public, reduce this to, I guess your concerns to some bullet points, so it'll be easily digestible for the citizens at what exactly the issues are?
I assume, but yeah, well, we could do that.
Okay. I just think it would be, just in terms of letting the public understand exactly why we've taken this up, and it's something that's easily digestible, and they can just know what, because this is a lot. This is a lot for us. So, but I think if everybody saw in some concise terms what the issues are in this EMA plan and what we want to get from it, I think that would be helpful.
Okay. What our purpose here is, the committee is seeking direction from the commission. We didn't want to come up here with ordinances and say, well, y'all already made the decision. So, we're working through this with these committees. I think this is the first report from a committee. We've discussed these issues, these concerns. I want to say this. I was surprised when Chief Scott said the city is in control of EMA. In other words, we need to change. No, what we really need to do is stick with the arrangement as it's codified. Now, it needs to be improved and updated. I don't question that. But I was surprised. And here it is in black and white. The city is in charge of emergency management. This, I appreciate Commissioner Young's comments. This pandemic has been something that is almost not contemplated. I mean, in the emergency management statute, it's thinking about hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, riots, something that happens, you see the devastation, and when it's over, you start cleaning up and repairing. This pandemic is almost interminable. But we need to prepare for a typical emergency. And what I'm talking about here is a flood, a hurricane, a tornado that could hit our city. We need a clear understanding. And I think that's what's in Chief Scott's recommendation. I mean, it's the point of the fact is the city has all the resources. That's why the city is in control of emergency management. There has to be more clear, and this is pretty well typical. It says the mayor and the chairman of the county commission looking at these other ordinances, and we can provide them to you. But one thing that other ordinances from similar sized cities are only of limited benefit when you look at Columbus, Macon, Augusta. Well, you have a consolidated government because there's going to be no issue. There's only one legislative body, one mayor, one chairman. But Savannah, as I mentioned earlier, is a locale where the city actually has a separate emergency management. And if you look at Chatham County is readily distinguished from us. It's a much bigger county, and geographically a larger percentage of the people live outside of the city limits. But I have throughout this tried to give weekly updates to the commission. I've taken some time to do that, but I think the commission, I know every commission has 12,000, 14,000 constituents that want to know what's going on. And under our present arrangement, basically, the city commission and to some extent the county commission is really not, doesn't have a right to be involved. And that is why, like I say, some of these other cities have updated the ordinance to make provision for commission involvement, and also to put some limitation, which would be appropriate. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But as I said, and Chief Scott pointed out at retreat, well, the proper procedures already in place. The city is responsible for emergency management throughout the county, and we see that. And so I think we need to be in a situation where we're prepared for the next catastrophe, whatever it is, a flood. We've been hit by floods, a tornado, and now last year, hurricane this far north. Now, my feeling is as the temperature heats up, we're going to see more and more of these type natural disasters. But we just need a better updated ordinance. And we are asking for direction from the commission. If y'all want us to have staff prepare ordinance, we'll proceed with it. Or if the majority of the commission's perfectly happy with the arrangement, I don't think that's the case because I don't know of anybody that's perfectly happy with the present arrangement. We won't go any further. But like I say, this is the first report from a committee, and this is a learning process. We'll take directions from the full commission, and that's why we're here. But certainly, I'd be glad to answer any questions. But like I say, it's right there in writing. the city is supposed to be responsible for emergency management. And this letter from the chairman that we have, this Exhibit 4, shows a clear misunderstanding of that arrangement when you're telling Mr. Bryson that the fire chief's going to be reporting to the chairman and the county commission. So, I mean, with that, we'll ask Commissioner Fuller, what's your preference?
Can you hear me, Mayor?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So just to be clear, is the committee proposing a separate management, emergency management, or just making some updates with what we have and continuing to work with the county on it?
Well, Commissioner Fuller, what I said is that was my inclination when we started, and Commissioner Fletcher specifically, and Commissioner Howard, I believe, said, I want to hear from the fire chief before we go any further. And Commissioner Fletcher was reluctant to go out. He said, let's see if we can repair what we have. And then it was brought to us that actually the city is supposed to be responsible for emergency management. So this thing's sort of been misdirected the last couple of disasters we had. So, but the committee, I don't think is making recommendation is so far as we're seeking guidance, and that's why I'm asking you tell us what your thoughts are. And like I say, if 4 members of the commission are happy with it, we won't no reason for us to meet anymore or take any further action. But that's certainly not my understanding from talking to members of the commission or from our discussion at retreat.
Right. No, I agree that we need some clarification and need to have a clear plan as we move forward, because as everyone has stated, we certainly know that we'll be having more situations for emergency management. I think that we're going to need to, I think we're going to have to communicate with the county on it, I would think, to clarify it. And I don't know where we go if there's discrepancy on how we understand the agreement and how the county does. I don't know what that next step is. I just don't, in my opinion, I don't think having 2 separate management, emergency management for city and county is going to be a good move. And I'm not saying that's what, I mean, it doesn't sound like that's what
Okay.
Just some, maybe we go with the revisions and turn that over, present that.
Well, Commissioner, just to reiterate, I think the problem here is in the lack of detail that we have, and we're going back, and there's been very little revision to the ordinance that was enacted in 1992, and since that time, how many floods, how many disasters have we had? But anything else, Commissioner Fuller?
That to the county. No, sir.
I think we were losing you.
That's all.
Okay.
Can you hear me? That was all.
Yes, I lost you for a while though. Commissioner Fletcher, you want to address any?
Commissioner,
I think Commissioner Fuller is, I think there, or I know because I sat in on that committee, it was just important to define the roles. It clearly states that the city was, should head the EMA up. But I think what we come up with is we just want to clarify the rules and point out the direction of the way this is going to go. There were a few more pieces to this that we didn't know, and one of it was really reimbursement. There's rules that you have to go by to even look at any type of reimbursement. So I think what the mayor is asking, and what I'd like to know is, would y'all like for us to go further to get something in writing? Nothing's going to be solid until we get 4 votes, but would y'all like for us to go further? Do you feel like we're on the right track of defining the roles of the city and the county? Thank you.
Commissioner Warburton.
Yeah, so if you're asking my opinion, a couple of statements. Number one, I used a term a minute ago called policy creep. And I think this is a resolution that we all hope and pray sits on the shelf and we don't need it. And obviously we went a long period of time, we didn't need it. And then all of a sudden, the last 4 years, we've used it. And each time has been a different disaster, some more city related. One of the tornadoes was predominantly in the county. So every time we've used this over the last 4 or 5 years, I think we've evolved. And so for me, there is no criticism for the past. I appreciate everybody who has stepped up, because when these things have happened, citizens are our number one concern. And I believe that's always been the concern. But with that being said, my opinion going forward is I don't believe we should have a separate EMA. And I think that's what the group also is communicating. I don't think we should be separate and have a city EMA and a county EMA. I do go back to this 92 document. And of course, when Gil Barrett and Paul Keenan signed it and their representative commissions, it can be pretty clear that the city, they intended for the city to be the lead. But they also included joint, which meant, the city may be the lead, but it's always an indication that the county should be jointly involved. And so there was not it didn't say exclusively or without consideration. It was the city somewhat being the lead or jointly. And so that jointly is always there. So I believe we ought to, the 92 document with a few changes, I believe is pretty clear going forward is what I would have. And then my other, and I've already mentioned this statement, is just somehow adding some commission involvement, ever how that is. So that those would be my opinions if the group is asking for that.
And one thing, I just, before I go to Commissioner Langstaff, I mean, I would say, and this is one thing we discussed, the extent of the joint involvement is really superseded by the service delivery strategy, where you say at that point in time, the county said, you got a single provider in the city. And like I say, that document signed by Mr. Crowdis. So that joint authority to some degree it was relinquished. But Commissioner Langstaff?
I think I agree with what Chad's saying. I guess there's a circumstance where we can't agree with the county and we would have to do our own EMA. But generally, I agree with what Chad said.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
Not from me.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same mindset. I don't necessarily see us having a separate EMA, but I do want the roles clarified and us to have definitely a seat at the table. And if that's, what we need to do to make sure we have that seat at the table, that's what we have to do. But I want us to do our due diligence to make sure we reach out to the county and, just try to find some areas of, make sure we find some areas of collaboration and some understanding with them, because I think that's better for the whole community as a whole. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Young. If I could ask all the commissioners, what I'm hearing, is there's a consensus, nobody really wants to pursue a independent EMA, that there should be some commission involvement in during a state of emergency. And I think when Commissioner Young was talking about involvement, he was talking about the commissioners rather than the city. Is that okay? So I can correct that. And then thirdly, that we need to work with the county to identify our concerns and then to see if we could come to some amicable resolution. What I would ask is commissioners just to email me your thoughts, and we'll get all that together. And when the committee meets again, we'll identify, and I would encourage the commissioners to look at other ordinances in other cities. Some of them have been extensively revised, and I think that would be beneficial. Did you want to say anything to this, Ms. Subadan?
I do thank the committee for the work, and for Chief Scott for putting together the work, and Mayor for pulling this together. I don't have a vote, but my opinion is that we should continue to be joint. I think that our citizens need that. I think it helps them to have clarity. But I also think what's written and what's in practice should match. And I appreciate Chad's comments about the past. What I think I want to make sure that everybody knows on the record is we have always known this is our responsibility, and we have always carried out our responsibility. And so I don't want there to be the perception of the public that we were confused about the city's role in leading emergency management. We have always done that. How the emergency management, how the state of emergency is declared, and those pieces, yes, it is true there has been deviation, and as you said, Chad, I guess policy creep in how it's been actually managed at that level. But I just want the listening public to know the city has always managed emergency management. We always will, as long as the service delivery strategy requires that of us, and this board supports us doing that. But thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you. And again, if members of the commission will just email their thoughts, we'll get together. The next time the commission meets, we'll take some direct, decisive action on that. Is that fair enough, Commissioner Fletcher, Mayor Pro Tem? That's agreed. Okay. The next item on the agenda, we have some alcohol license applications. The first is for a Magnolia grocery store at 108 South Magnolia. Mr. Norman, are you with us?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You have the floor.
Thank you. Shara Hira 21 number 1 LLC is doing business at Magnolia Grocery Store at 108 South Magnolia Street. Has submitted an application requesting an alcohol license for package sales of beer and wine. The applicant is Milan Patel from 4538 La Costa Drive here in Albany, Georgia at 31721. The type of business is a convenience store. The planning department identified this location as zoned in Z3 on a collector street and in Ward 4. The distance requirement must be greater than 100 yards from schools and churches. The nearest school is Magnolia Elementary School at 1700 Sanford Avenue, which is over 1,000 feet. And the nearest church is New Destiny Church at 205 South Magnolia Street at 640 feet. This location was previously Magnolia Pawn Shop from 2013 to 2017 and has been empty ever since. The police department has no open investigations at this location. The applicant has placed an article in the Albany Herald at least 10 days prior to this meeting as notification to the general public that this application would be considered for approval. This application meets the criteria for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Norman. Any questions for Mr. Norman? Mayor Pro Tem.
No question.
Commissioner Fuller.
No, sir, no questions.
Commissioner Fletcher.
No questions.
Commissioner Warrington.
Yeah, Mr. Norman. So I'm just trying to understand the character of this business so previously it was a pawn shop, and I know exactly where this is at. So what they're wanting to transition to with the new business is to be like a convenience store. There's no gas pumps there. So this would be groceries, or is it beer and wine only? What is the character of the business?
It would be a grocery store in a convenience store setting, and they will have groceries to include beer and wine.
Okay. Are they currently operating as a grocery store now, or are they waiting for this license to open up?
They're waiting for approval of this commission.
Okay, so basically they're not willing to be a grocery store, or they're waiting to even sell those products until this. So they don't have a certificate right now, a license to operate just as a grocery store.
No, sir. They're doing some of the modifications to the building, trying to get things situated.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Langstaff?
No question.
Commissioner Young?
Yes, sir, Mr. Norman. How far is this from any residential structure?
There are apartment complexes on the opposite side of the street.
Okay.
There are duplexes.
And is Magnolia Elementary, that's not open for school, is it? It's
Yes,
closed
sir.
down, or is it our students?
They're
Wow.
they're currently operating. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. And I guess I can see there are, I guess it's two other convenience stores within this kind of general area, maybe less than a quarter mile. One at the end of Broad, and then the other one down at the end of where Magnolia meets Gillianville.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Norman. And the next two items are seeking a transfer of an existing license. The first is at 1102 Newton Road. The business is Newton Road Package, and the applicant is Sijalban Patel, I guess. You have the floor, Mr. Norman.
Yes, sir. This is a transfer of ownership for Newton Road Package Store at 2317 Incorporation, doing business as Brothers Package Store, 1102 Newton Road. They have submitted an application requesting an alcohol license for transfer of ownership for liquor, beer, and wine package. The applicant, Sajin K. Patel, at 17030 South 26th Street, Mancampany, Florida 32667. And the local agent is Lenora Davis at 922 Lippert Drive, Apartment D, here in Albany, Georgia, 31701. The type of business is a package store. The planning department identified this location as zoned in C2 on an arterial street and in Ward 3. The location is currently open as Brothers Package Store. They've been open since 2018. The police department has no open investigations at this location. The applicant placed an ad in the Albany Herald at least 10 days prior to this meeting as notification to the general public that the application will be considered for approval. This application meets the criteria for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Norman.
Yes, sir.
Any question, Mayor Pro Tem?
No question.
Commissioner Fuller,
No questions.
Commissioner Fletcher,
No questions.
Commissioner Warrington,
No questions.
Commissioner Langstaff,
No question.
Commissioner Young.
No question.
Thank you, Mr. Norman. The I'm sorry. The next item is a application for transfer for the business at 1400 East Broad Avenue. The applicant, I'll let Mr. Norman speak to that. Mr. Norman?
Yes, sir. This is a transfer from Cherie Deep Investment Incorporation, doing business as Dixie Food Mart at 1400 East Broad Avenue. Has submitted an application requesting an alcohol license transfer of ownership for packaged beer only. Nishichandra C. Bharat from 3 Aberdeen Circle, Cordell, Georgia, 31705. The local agent is Shantae Savage from 2801 Spelman Drive here in Albany, Georgia, 31701. This type of business is a convenience store. The planning department identified this location zone in C3 on an arterial street and in Ward 1. This is an existing location licensed to do business as Dixie Food Mart from 2006 until the date. The police department has no open investigations at this location. The applicant placed an article in the Albany Herald at least 10 days prior to this meeting as notification to the general public that this application would be considered for approval. This application meets the criteria for approval.
Thank you, Ms. Norman.
Yes,
Any questions from Ms. Norman, Mayor Pro Tem?
Mr. Norman.
Yes, sir.
How you doing this morning?
I'm doing pretty fair.
Okay. The person that would manage your name is Chantel Savage. Where is 2801 Spearman Drive? Where's that's located in the city?
It's located in Doherty County off of Southgate subdivision.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Fuller,
No questions.
Commissioner Fletcher,
No questions.
Commissioner Worthington,
No questions.
Commissioner Langstaff,
No questions.
Commissioner Young.
Yeah, no question.
Thank you, Ms. Norman.
Yes, sir.
We have an amended agenda. It looks like the next item will be a discussion of the traffic calming program. And who will be speaking on this item?
I'm going to ask Ken Stock and Bruce Maples. If you remember, we made a presentation on traffic calming, I think last month. And what I've asked the staff to do is to come up with just some suggestions based on your comments on how the policy might be modified. It is your policy. And so while we have some technical recommendations, ultimately making changes to it is a policy decision. And so this is really for discussion, so that if you want us to make changes to bring a more refined policy for your consideration, we know what direction to go in. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Stock.
Thank you, Ms. Subadan. Yeah, so just to follow up on Ms. Subadan's comments, I think many of you are aware that staff has received many requests for traffic calming measures, to be deployed. The problem is, or the issue is that many of the requests don't meet even the initial criteria for the program. They're either for roads that are not defined in the policy as local roads, so therefore they right away are excluded from the policy, or they have issues further down in the process where they either do not meet the speed criteria or they are unable to achieve the proper percentage of signatures. And so it's very difficult for staff to kind of know, because of the policy, staff is limited to one answer at that point, and the answer is it doesn't meet the criteria. And so that's why we bring this forward to kind of discuss other ways of maybe looking at it, or how you would like us, to handle this going forward. TAC, if you could put up the one-page slide presentation I sent this morning, that might be helpful. Thank you very much. Basically, this slide basically describes what I said just a second ago, that obviously there's streets that are other than local roads that don't qualify for the existing policy, or there's issues with the speed or the percentage of signatures required. So at this point, Mayor, I was thinking I would basically turn this over to you to be in charge of us for discussion, but any questions I have to hand off to our professional traffic engineers, Mr. Maples and Mr. Breedlove.
Thank you, Mr. Stock. But before we have questions, did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Mr. Maples?
No, sir. Just be prepared to answer any questions that you have. But, I do want to restate what the city manager said. One of the biggest issues that we have, and the ACM said, is we do the study in accordance with the current traffic calming policy. We contact, if it meets the criteria for speeding, we contact the initiator of the request and provide the petition to them. But at this point, a lot of the ones that we have not gotten responses back and have not proceeded on is due to the failure of people obtaining the appropriate petition signatures. And sometimes that seems to be the most laborious part of the whole process. And so we tried to help them through the whole process. They do, right now we have several that have said they don't want to go out because of the COVID-19 situation, that people won't come to the doors, or they're fearful themselves of going out and being the person to go out and try and obtain the signatures. So we do understand that, and we're appreciative of that. And at some point, whenever this situation is over with, hopefully we can always get back to the normal procedure and proceed on and respond accordingly.
Mr. Breedlove, you had anything you want to add?
No, sir, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, any questions for Mr. Stock, Mr. Maples, or Mr. Breedlove?
No question at this time.
Commissioner Fuller, you with us?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You want to give us some background on this?
Yes, sir. Well, so in Ward 2, I know we've run into kind of roadblocks in several different instances when we've been working on the traffic calming devices. As Mr. Maples said, the process of getting the speed, obviously getting the speed detection, the radar service out and testing the speed. Obviously, sometimes it doesn't meet that criteria. And so in more cases than not, there probably was not a big speeding issue. But when they do meet the criteria of over the, I think it's 10 miles per hour over the speed limit, where we're running into a problem a lot in Ward 2 is exactly like Mr. Maple said, is getting those petition signatures. And that's falling a lot of times on the homeowner, or I'm sorry, the resident that's going around to get the petitions. What they're running into a lot is obviously if the home is a rental property, then they're not able to obtain, when they go to the residence itself, to obtain the signature of the property owner. And then whether it goes any further of them trying to find the property owner, look up the landlord, or whether they just get frustrated at that point. I'm sure there's some of both, but that's what is keeping a lot of those, a lot of places in Ward 2 from getting the required signatures. So one thought as we move forward and think about it would be, could the city perhaps send out, as opposed to the resident that has gone and first made the petition about having the calming devices put in, could the city actually mail out something to all of the homeowners on the affected street, or the 2 blocks that would be necessary for the signatures? Could the city mail those out to the property owners, and then maybe even go a step further? If we don't get something back within 30 days, could we then let that vote go over to the tenant that is there occupying the property, if they could show a lease that they're actually occupying the space, something of that nature, if we want to discuss, that would give, kind of get these roadblocks that we keep running into. It seems I've had 4 or 5 instances where we met the criteria of the excessive speed, but then when we got to the petitions, we're hitting a roadblock. And that's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Fletcher.
Well, two things. One, I'm going through the same thing that Commissioner Fuller's going through, and then I talk with engineering and we do the email and request, et cetera. But another thing I just went through 2 weeks ago, and try to say this without it being negative, you know, I finally got one of the devices where it would read your tag if you were speeding. Where these things are being placed, it's so obvious that it's there. You have time to break your speed. And I don't know if we have some, I mean, it was just, again, I appreciate the device being over there, but it calmed it long enough while they were there because you could see that you were actually being recorded. But after they left, we're back up at it. And I guess this is for you, Chief. Do we have anything where we can do a little bit better job of capturing these people that's running these stop signs and flying through these stop signs? And I'm talking about over on the avenues on both sides in between Slappy. Thank you.
Did you want the Chief to answer that question?
If he's on, no, I don't think it'd be something that Bruce could answer. But we just don't, when you're putting it in such a high profile place, heck yeah, you're going to slow down.
Chief?
Yes, sir. Morning, Mayor, Commissioners. The purpose of those speed detection devices is to get to make the public aware, and that sometimes there are only certain places that we can place them in order you could get a good digital read on the traffic that is coming. Now, to the in regards to the point about catching the people, we would have to put somebody at that location or in that area to actually write the citations. But the whole purpose of the speed detection trailers are that we can make sure to let people know what their speeds are, and it's to help during that time. We are trying to get more of those in the future, and even some that can do license plate technology. So not only will we capture the speed, but we can also capture the license plate of the person, but that's in the works.
Well, but what I was saying, Chief, is when it's so visual, I mean, when you could see it a mile down the road, we're not going to capture them speeding or running the stop signs, because that's like somebody being at the red light down the road saying, hey, slow down. You got, officers up at the other corner. And maybe if we could just do I understand what you're saying, to take the read, you got to have, evidently a clear shot, et cetera, but something is going to have to be better than what we had, because it slowed it down there. And I'm still getting reports of people and I see it with my own eyes, don't even stop at the stop signs on the avenues. And we got elderly people over there, people in wheelchairs. And, I just hate to know that we're going to have to improve this situation after someone gets killed. Thanks, Chief.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Warrington.
Yeah. So I got a couple points. One, I completely agree with Commissioner Fuller. I think that's a great idea about the owners versus the tenants. And I think you probably have to limit that to a single family residence versus like a duplex or a quadruplex. That would get a little complicated. But if we tried it with single family, and what I would say, kind of like Commissioner Fuller said, is maybe you give the owner a 30-day opportunity. And if you don't hear from them, you don't respond, you can't track them down, you have no idea where they live, then there is a process to then go to the tenant, and whether you use the utility bill or some other mechanism to say, hey, they've lived there for 6 months, or there's some, tie to that street, and to make, so I think that's definitely something I would support. The other couple things I've run across is large tracts of land and how you deal with. So, for instance, where Lake Park Elementary is in my ward, we were attempting to get speed tables on that street. Well, Lake Park Elementary owns the entire left side of the street, and then you have residents on the right side of the street. I lobbied, that Lake Park Elementary should get as many votes as the neighbors across the street, because they own the equivalent of 10 lots on the left. So we need some kind of mechanism to prorate that. And then that goes to another question around government entities. If we were trying to get Lake Park's vote, we got to go to the school board, or what's the mechanism to get their approval? That creates some complexity. So I don't know if we can just assume that if the government entity owns the land, that it's an assumed yes vote. I don't know if it's proper to do that, because even if the county were to own property, or even the city, I guess, would we have to vote to give a yes vote on a petition? So government entities, large tracts of land. Your one bullet point there, Ken, in the middle, what are you proposing for the percentile and the petition? Are you saying just if it's over 35 miles per hour, that's approved? And then are we saying we're going to lower the percentage signature from the 80% down to 6? What are your two numbers you're proposing there for the middle bullet point?
Yes, Commissioner, I'm going to defer that to Mr. Maples and Mr. Breedlove.
Okay. What we have now is, we have a graduated process that if the speed limit exceeds a certain level from 36 miles an hour to 39 or 40, then you have to get 80% signatures. If it's above the 41 miles per hour over 10 miles an hour, it comes down to 60%. In looking at all the, I shouldn't say all, hyperbole, in looking at the ones we have looked at across the state, it varies. We kind of mimic Macon Bibb has it. Theirs are more extreme. They have a 70-90 requirement. You look at Valdosta. Valdosta has they only go with one speed. If it's over 10 miles an hour, the posted speed limit, they require a 70% participation in the petition process. So it varies across the state as to whether or not you have it broken down and what the percentages are. So it's whatever you really are looking at. There's no set tried stipulation in the ITE guidelines. It's pretty much whatever you want as far as the percentages. The lowest we've ever seen, and I say the ones that we reviewed, again, we haven't done any exhaustive research on it, but the ones that we have reviewed from the Atlanta area to Savannah to Augusta, Clark, and Athens, and all those, I think the lowest percentage that I think I have seen, and I need to make sure, I think it's either 60 or 65% participation on the petition process. But several of them have singular requirements, like 10 miles an hour over, then it justifies. Just so you know, just for your information in making an informed decision, we did talk to Valdosta. We talked to the person that was in control of that project. This year they have the requirement is 10 miles an hour over, then they have to have 70% petition participation. They have done 134 traffic studies, and none of them have met the requirements. So they never have even made, out of those 134, they never have made it to the petition process. So, and since they implemented their program in 2009, the person in charge of it said they've only installed 10 traffic calming measures on 10 streets in the city of Valdosta.
Okay, I guess my opinion would be, if we could get to a single speed number and then a single percentage, and I would be inclined to lower that percentage from where we currently are. I believe most of our petitions don't fail because of no votes. They're failing because of not getting a vote, which I guess is a no vote, but we're not getting responses back. So the yeses are overwhelming to the no's, but then the no response is, so that would be my input on that, is maybe lower it to set, maybe let's drop it 10% and see how it may be deciding vote on some of these cases. The last point I would say, and I've talked to, I was going to say Ken, but that applies to three people, but I guess to all three Kens, was is options. So I believe sometimes right now we're so focused on speed tables, but there's numerous options for speed control. So And even when I've tried to help citizens with signatures, we don't really it's hard to explain to them what, are we going to do 3 tables, 4 tables, 10 tables, so it's almost like maybe when we do the study, have more of a plan and say it's going to be this many on these places, and then you go get the signatures. Right now, we're getting the signatures before we can articulate to the citizens what the plan is. So sometimes it may be an illuminated sign. Sometimes it may be these devices that Commissioner Fletcher was mentioning, which I guess those don't require the signatures, but at least citizens would know we're doing some things before we go the route of a speed table. So
yeah, one of the things that we have, one of the biggest programs that I think we fail is the education and the enforcement portion of it. So those are identified as traffic calming measures, and sometimes that could be more beneficial than some fiscal measure. So.
Yep, that's it. Thanks.
Commissioner Langstaff.
I'm fine with the changes that Chad and Matt mentioned, but I really want a change to the types of streets that are covered. I think we need to add collector streets to the list. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what East Doublegate is categorized as, Bruce. So I want to make sure that comes within the ordinance.
Yeah, East Doublegate is identified as a collector street. Yes, sir.
So that would be my request, is that when modifying the ordinance, we add collector streets as possible streets where speed tables could go. That's all I got.
Ms. Young?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to see, I know when this was mentioned earlier before the pandemic, we had talked about, I guess, staff becoming probably more of the process than they have been in the past. Because I think now they just kind of get the packet for the signatures and drop it off, or they email it out to the citizens, and the citizens have to kind of navigate the packet and get all the signatures and all those things. What's the possibilities of us getting staff to assist citizens with that?
Certainly we can. Mayor, can I go ahead and respond to that?
Yes, ma'am.
Certainly we can get staff to be more involved. Here recently, we have, not the same thing, but we've really had a difficult time, for example, getting easements for alleys. And so we're recognizing the need to have a person that really works on getting citizen engagement and involvement to get that kind of information back. However, I think it's important to still have the citizens, because I guess I don't want the community to feel like we're sort of forcing it down their throat, but if we still get the citizen request for it, we do the speed study, can we support helping the citizens with making the contact? For example, we can do the property record search to figure out who's the property owner of record if there's a vacant lot, for example. I know that's a big challenge. You have vacant lots all over the city and people don't have a door to knock on. So I certainly think that would be a way that we could provide support, through city staff. And if I can add on, I think the government entity question is a good one. I don't know that we've, on large tracts, I don't really know that we've thought about that. But one of the things we wanted to throw out, and maybe it's sort of a three-part approach, not to overcomplicate it, but in the instance where we are unsuccessful getting the owner, how do you feel about letting the tenant get a proxy from the owner that gives the tenant the opportunity to vote on behalf of the owner? Because the only thing that makes me a little concerned is what happens when you run into a situation where the owner says, no, I don't want it, but the tenant says, but I do. you know, we kind of need to think that part through, and we need policy direction ahead of time to know what to do in that situation.
Well, I would think that, you know, if we, and it's not necessarily that, you know, I know you all don't want to be out here seeing this kind of trying to push, you know, a decision as to whether these devices go in the community or not. But I just kind of, you know, like you said, do those things that kind of, you know, dissipate the legwork for citizens. You know, if the signature page is available online, or if they can come down and sign it if they would, or if they want to, you know, just have it available so somebody's not having to kind of track all these things down and find property owners, homeowners, like you said, or walk up and down the street, you know, knocking on their neighbor's door, you know, who they might not know, but just those type things. But yeah, I definitely look forward to seeing those things come into the process. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. My concern is that we don't unwittingly get in a situation where the city all suddenly has assuming responsibility for getting together the petition, because, as it's been mentioned, it looks like you're advocating one position over the other, that position being installing the bumps. I have some concern. I mean, I think we need to really consider what the outcome of that would be, because also this term, I don't know the group of people who are seeking to put the traffic controlling devices. I think the term's been used, initiator or petitioner, but then that person might be upset, but the city's not doing enough, that you didn't go see Miss Smith at this house and she said she hadn't heard from you. I think there's some advantage here to letting it be an organic process, and the people in the community are primarily responsible for it. I do see that we have an issue here with tenants. I mean, it's frankly unfair, having sat in on a meeting. If you're a tenant and people are speeding out in front of your house, it doesn't matter that you don't have the deed to the property. You're still, and your children are still at the same risk that a homeowner would be. And I understand why the policy was probably adopted like it is. I just think we need to make some adjustment so that tenants can express their preference or opposition if that's the case. And what Commissioner Fuller has suggested seems to be plausible. First, you go to the owner, and then if the owner doesn't respond, or as sort of Ms. Subadan mentioned, ask the owner, would you allow the tenant to make the decision? The problem with that is, of course, the owner doesn't live there, and then that gets back to the city assuming responsibility. You're going to find that some of the owners of these properties don't live in Albany. The property might be managed by a property company, a management company, and then there's a way to get over that. But the citizens' frustration is going to be directed at the city if we assume the responsibility of collecting the signatures. But clearly, we need to make those some amendments, and the most important being allowing tenants to express their opposition or support. But with that, does anybody else have any questions or concerns? Where do we go from here? I guess I should ask. Ms. Subadan?
What we can do is maybe come up with an agenda item that gives you options that you kind of vote up or down. And then based on what direction we get, we can then incorporate that into a policy. It's a little hard to sort of just do a policy with, or amend the policy with everything we got. So would that be acceptable? And maybe we can put that on the next work session. And if we get consensus, you know, you don't take a vote in a work session, but if we get consensus on kind of the bulleted suggestions, then we can now fold it into a policy? Or do you think you want us to just go ahead and take a stab at a new policy?
What's your preference, Mayor Pro Tem?
I would say we go forward with city manager.
Commissioner Fuller?
Yes, sir. I say let's look at the bullet points at our next agenda, and if we're good with it, then we could vote on it in our end of the month meeting.
Commissioner Fletcher?
Well, I agree with you, Mayor. I just don't see where it's our responsibility, you know, and if we man these areas and we put the right devices out to see if we have a problem, then if we've got a problemed area, I don't see why the city can't make that decision. But I'm with looking at bullet points and let's see what's best for the community. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm favored. Just, you know, put these on paper and specifics and talk about them. One thing I did think about as we were talking, I'm trying to come up with a new phrase, but maybe I'll use our federal Congress and Senate term, a nuclear option, meaning if there is a case that both staff recommends, engineering recommends, and for whatever reason there's some weird street layout it can't get, you know, but there's a consensus amongst the commission and a consensus among staff, there needs to be some mechanism to override that signature. I don't know legally if you can override signatures. I guess, does that put the city at risk if you proceed with speed tables and you only got 2 signatures? Is there a mechanism to allow that to happen?
That could be a provision in a new ordinance that had to have objective standards, you know, to support it. Like you say, it's crucial because of such and such, but that could be in the, my impression is this might lead to a revamp of the ordinance itself, and that could be included. Yes, sir.
Okay. So, you know, you might have an objective criteria like number of wrecks.
Exactly, something like that.
Maybe the police chief concurs, the director of engineering concurs, city manager concurs, and then the city commission concurs. And that would be our nuclear option.
Yes, sir, that would pass muster. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Langstaff?
I agree with what Commissioner Worthington said. That's fine with me.
Commissioner Young?
I'm good with the bullet points and what Commissioner Worthington said.
Okay. Need any further direction, Ms. Subadan?
No, I think we got it from here. We'll have something on the next work session for you.
Okay, if we could digress, Commissioner Fletcher's brought up the point that on one of these properties, I think the establishment on Newton Road, is Mr. Norman still with us?
Yes, sir.
If we could go back, Mr. Norman, I think for the commission, I think it's on page 22 in the packet. I think this property at 1102 Newton Road, is that correct, Mr. Fletcher? Okay, you have the floor. You on?
Well, actually, and I might even add it to the titles for future agenda.
Commissioner Fletcher is muted.
All right, well, I'm sure the world loves that. Yeah, the property over on Newton, I knew it rung a bell in 2018, and Norman just confirmed it. There was a incident over there. I believe it was a woman that got shot, and I'm going back over the application, Mayor. There's really nothing on these applications that would have told us that. So I think under new items of agenda, I might see if there's something we can do if we've had an incident at some of these places. I would like to have known that, because that will at least get me out in the neighborhood this week and see how the neighbors feel about that, even though it meets our requirements. And I have a tendency to lean towards that when I see it's an area that there's been several problems that will influence my decision. So
Okay.
maybe we could somehow add that to our application.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. And Commissioner Norman, you usually tell us if there are any ongoing investigations or any incidents within the last 12 months. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Obviously, if you have a business that's been in the dark for 2 years, it's not going to, yeah, so, we'll address that in the new items.
Next item is
The next item is the solid waste contract, which was recently awarded to Concrete Enterprises. And Mr. Stock, Mr. Rowe, and is Mr. Wiggins with us?
I am.
Good morning, Mr. Wiggins.
Morning.
Okay, Mr. Stock, you want to give us an update?
Sure, Mayor. Thank you. So as everyone is aware, Concrete Enterprises took over serving our solid waste needs west of Slappy starting on October 1st. And they are here to give us an update presentation on how things are going for them. So TAC, I think if you could go ahead and start their slide presentation, please.
Who's going to be making the presentation? Is Mr. Wiggins going to make the presentation?
Yes, Mayor. Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Wiggins, you have the floor.
Okay, good morning, Mayor, City
Good
Manager, City Commission, and everyone else online. Appreciate your time. As you said, we're here to give an update on our 5 weeks of service with the West Side solid waste contract that we received. And we're happy to update that so far it's went really well. Few hiccups to start with right there. We worked with the outgoing contractor to get those worked out. And for the most part, it's been smooth sailing the last couple of weeks, which is a good thing in our opinion. Just wanted to go back through, who we are real quick, our qualifications and experience. We bought the company in 2015. We got into the waste collection business in 2016. That was primarily in the roll-off business with construction debris, serving residential and commercial customers throughout South Georgia. That went really well for us, and we wanted to get into the municipal waste business, and saw the opportunity with the city that our corporate office is in, and the contract came up, and we went through the bid process and was able to get a contract, and we're very excited about that. We're local. We are happy to be in this city. We want to keep it clean, do our part. We're very fortunate that as time has went on, that we've been able to hire employees that were from the municipal waste business, since we didn't have a whole lot of experience initially going into this. We were able to hire people with over 75 years of experience in this business, and it's shown in these short 5 weeks. What we'd like to present to you that separates us is that we're really focused on our people. It's the backbone of our company. It's the backbone on the service that we want to give. And it's been really nice to work with Stacy and Don and the people that are on their team, that we've been able to really communicate with those guys and get the few and the small problems that have occurred handled very, very quickly. And I think the citizens have noticed that and appreciate that. It's been nice to work with those guys, even as far as, getting some of the alleys cleaned up a little bit. As you all know, we bought all new equipment from the actual barrels to the trucks. And we want to keep them looking good, not only for our company as a billboard with the number on the side, but for the community to be happy to have us servicing them well. So it's been good to work with Stacy Don and his team, and we look forward to this partnership that we have growing and getting better. We are local, which is makes us feel good. I think it makes the community feel good that they've got a local contractor in that is providing this service. It's easy to get a hold to us. As you can see in the slide, we've got Mia and Amber there that are answering the phone for any to answer any questions for citizens, for city or anybody else that has questions. As you can tell, they're excited to come to work. We're glad to have a live line. It's not a recording. The citizens appreciate that. They've communicated that to us. Currently, we're running 5 rear loader trucks on our West Side contract. We're running 7 grapple trucks for the yard debris. We got that caught up fairly quickly, and now we're able to run those trucks on a committed route so that we stay in line with the 2 times a month service of the yard debris, and then we're actually able to, our trucks are getting home fairly early on the garbage side pickup. We're really excited about our technology that we went the extra mile to provide to the city, and that's working real well. I'm the least technical person on this call, so I'm gonna let Craig in a few minutes talk to you about that. But it's really been interesting to watch that work. The reporting is going to be spot on. There's been a few bugs in it, but we're getting those worked out. So the technology piece is working well. We're still at. From there, I would like to let you guys know that we have found a subcontractor that is going to be helping us with the West Side contract. I've known the guy for a long time, actually served on several boards with him. And we've been talking about doing business together for a while now. And this kind of came up, and we're very, very excited to be able to work with, partner with our subcontractor, local guy, smart guy, and we've got some exciting things that we want to continue to provide for the community. So we're very excited to announce that Marvin Lassiter with Legacy C+C is going to be our partner in a portion. Here's Marvin there, as you guys can see, in a portion of the contract on the west side that we have. Marvin started his routes November 1st, and at the plans to pick up approximately 3,800 cans a month, and he has a yard debris route. A week, excuse me, thank you, Craig. Has a yard debris route as well. He's got 2 trucks that he's running, 6 employees, and I can't say enough about Marvin. We're really excited about having him on our team, as both of us are local guys, trying to make a go of it in this great community that we live in. And from there, I'm Jason Wiggins, the owner. If you guys didn't know, I'd like to turn it over for just a second to Marvin and let you hear from him.
Thanks, Jason, for those kind words. Mayor, commissioners, and Madam City Manager, I'm pleased to be here. I want to say a special acknowledge Commissioner Langstaff, as I didn't have opportunity to touch bases with you as I had with the remainder of the commissioners. But as I explained to them, Legacy C+C is not this overnight thing that just happened. It is something that me and my family, specifically my son, have been discussing for a better part of 2 years. Now, our major focus was going to be in construction and consulting, especially around hub and opportunities on our opportunities that present themselves. We thought about Legacy C+C, and everything about Legacy C+C is very symbolic, but we wanted it to be an environmentally conscious construction company that would utilize the best of talent and also enhance and streamline the effectiveness of our business by utilizing technology. So if you would have asked me 6 weeks ago, did I think Legacy C+C would be in the waste management business? Absolutely not. So this marriage right here is just the right people at the right place at the right time, looking to make a difference in our community. And so I'm happy to be a part of it. And don't worry, I'm not leaving my place at Boys and Girls Club just yet. We're still gonna do that piece as well. But excited about this and really excited about the technology that Concrete Enterprises is using to execute on this project, which is making it very attractive for Legacy C+C to get involved with. So that's my spiel, and I'll stay here if you have any more questions.
Let Craig talk about the technology piece. He's much more astute on that than I am.
Good morning. Or almost afternoon by now. The technology that we introduced to the city was called WeStar. It is a cloud-based solution that allows us to monitor all of our assets at the same time performing certain route verifications and also driver efficiencies. The slide you're looking at right there is the landing page that has various modules that we're able to track this information using. How that technology works is through a RFID chip on the next slide. That RFID chip is sitting on the top of that trash can. It is embedded into the handle of the trash can and then is read by the sensor that is on the back of the truck. At the time that it is being dumped, a service verification is shown to the driver inside, along with doing a timestamp, which is also on the next slide. Those timestamps are accumulated. It allows us to monitor the driver's performance, and also at the end of the day, we're here to verify the services being provided. As you click to the next slide, as it's verifying the service, it actually creates not only a timestamp, but a GPS location of actually where that cart is dumped. Therefore, if we're unable to locate an asset or if it's misplaced, we have a good coordinate that we can go after to actually find it. The next slide is kind of the summary of what a day's route looks like. This is what the girls in the management team can see. As you can see, those are where every can has been serviced on that route through that day. This is updated in real time, and we're able to track those drivers through it. It's also a software that allows us to track the individual assets. On the next slide, you can see that we're able to see where those trash cans, even them being on the alley, we're able to identify them, and then also our vehicles throughout the day. That is the one side of the software or the technology that we brought to the table. Another one that we've been utilizing in our concrete trucks, and our dump trucks, and our roll-off trucks is called Samsara. This is actually a video tracking software that monitors the routes of those vehicles in the next slide. The Samsara allows us to see what the driver sees. That video is maintained for, I think, 6 months, and then it's put onto a cloud where we can go back and request it if need be. But at any given time, we're able to see what the driver sees. This is a great thing for our safety and to also monitor the driver's performance. As you can see in this slide, it also tracks the route of those trucks. That's kind of a brief summary of the technology. In the following slides, we do have a few citizen testimonials that y'all can feel free to read that we thought were a good representation of how the service has been going so far to this point. And really with that, we'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Yes.
It's Mayor Pro Tem, any questions for Mr. Wiggins, Mr. Laster, or Mr. Moy?
Mr. Wiggin.
Yes, sir.
Good morning. How you do?
I'm good. How are you?
Let me ask you a question to go back. After we signed a contract with you and the city back in August of 2020, and your subcontractor, A1 Bradley, what happened? The communication broke down, or agreement just was not there? What?
I don't think there was a communication breakdown. We were very accessible. Matter of fact, I went to their office myself several times. We felt like it was both of our agreed upon that we need to get with our attorney as well as their attorney involved. We actually had two handshake agreements. I thought we had a good agreement with those guys based off of just the conversations that we had at their offices. We obviously knew that we had to put that in a contract form to make it legal and binding. So we suggested that we get our attorneys involved. We put together a contract that was based off of the contract that they currently had with GFL, and went from there. Now, obviously, GFL did not have the technology piece available, so that was a piece of the subcontractor agreement that had to be worked on. We turned all of that over to our attorney, and the two attorneys were talking. Several weeks went by. I kept asking the question, where are we at? Don James and Ulysses actually came to my office a couple of times. We talked about it, thought everything was going well. In the meantime, if I'm being honest, I think the GFL got a little nervous. We were able to, I wouldn't say, we ended up hiring a good portion of their employees that was servicing the contract that we currently have now, which made sense. And as that went on, I think GFL recognized that they would be losing employees that were also helping them on other contracts in this area. And I think that they went to, I'm pretty sure that they went to A1 Brantley and cut a better deal with them. And I actually was able to ask Don James that face to face. I said, listen, it's a business decision on your part now. If that's what you think's better for you and your company, then that's what you need to do. But let me know so I can make plans moving forward. He didn't really give me a good indication that was the route that he was going to go, but GFL did, because I asked them the same question. And that is where I guess the breakdown was. From there, I was never aware of any problem with the contract. I think he just was able to cut a better deal in his eyes and as a businessman for him with GFL.
A follow-up question. Since you would do the garbage pickup on the west side at the same price that the former company established, I'm concerned that after the breakdown with A1 Bradley and that you got the contract, why you did not come to the city manager or the city attorney and let them know that we could not come to a mutual agreement from A1 Bradley?
I was actually able to send over several emails and texts that I had gotten from GFL that A1 Brantley was going to be moving in a different direction, and that you know, they weren't going to go with us, and at that point I you know, understood that it was kind of the unwritten rule for a subcontractor to be in place. So I went to work very, very quickly to try to do it on my own. I don't need to have to rely on the city to run our company. That's not what the city or the citizens want. They want service, and they want good service. So I went to you know, my business mind, and to try to find a subcontractor that would be you know, qualified, held accountable, and eager to do business with us. And Marvin and I had been talking for a year about doing business together anyway. So I didn't think it was my place to have to go to the city to ask them for permission for who my subcontractor was going to be, since it was not a part of what the contract that I bid on in the first place.
That I realized that you say it was not your business to come to the city, but at the same time that I feel as a commissioner that I had requested from the city manager as the last month to put you back on the agenda, is to come and explain, can we get the contract that you've signed with Legacy CNC?
I don't have a problem with it, because we do have a signed contract. I don't think it's necessary. I actually feel like that the maybe some members of the city commission were trying to negotiate for a subcontractor that was not a part of the initial bid process that I had to go through. So, you know, there's nothing to hide. I would have to talk to our partner and subcontractor to see if he's willing to allow that contract to be out. I actually really feel like it's not about anybody's business but ours and our subcontractor. We're both happy with the contract that we have, and as long as the service is there, I don't know what there is to discuss about the contract.
Mr. Wiggin, back to you again. Rich, you realize that we signed this contract is based on renewal up to a year. And I feel that not only as a commission, since we are using taxpayer money to pay for the pickup of garbage on the west side, I feel that not every step that you make, but at any step that you're going to have a minority participation, that the city should be aware of what's going on, because saying that who knows what this commission would do next year with this contract, and to not keep us informed of what's going on, I think as a business person that it would be in the best interest to let this commissioner know.
Commissioner Howard, I understand your concerns. I will assure you that the same contract that was offered A1 Brand was the same one that I signed. And as a private citizen, I would caution you on I think we're going down a slippery slope here. That I always thought that the city commission or any governmental entity had to remain neutral. And so it sounds like that even though there wasn't a requirement for a minority to be involved, it was a preference, not a requirement. But now he has fulfilled the request, has a minority, although it wasn't a requirement. You're not happy with the minority that was selected. So I'm almost a little bit offended by that.
But let's I think Commissioner Howard, if we could just let Mr. Wiggins get with his attorneys and his partner, I can understand why he wouldn't want to contract out on the street, and I can understand why Legacy wouldn't want the contract out on the street. But can we just leave that as it may be, and we'll get an answer to you on that at a later date and proceed?
I agree with you, Mayor, that, you know, at a later date we can proceed. But other than that, I have no further question.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Howard. Commissioner Fuller?
No questions.
Mr. Fletcher?
Well, wow, I just have a comment, Mayor and Commissioner Howard, and I've sat beside you for 7 years, but that Mr. Wiggins gave you a much nicer answer than I would have given you. You know, it was, and I won't cross the line because it is a slippery slope, but I will tell you that the only complaint so far that I've had on this company, and it was almost going to be the nicest complaint that one could get, was I couldn't figure out why when you've got a row of homes, one or two areas was being missed, or one or two cans, let me put it that way. Mr. Stacy Rowe, which does an excellent job of taking my calls. He went back in, the cameras worked, everything worked, the chip worked. And what I found out was this company was really good at what it's doing. It was actually getting to the homes quicker than what it's been getting in the past. So I was able to get back to my constituents and say, you're used to 11 o'clock pickup. Think this company is using the same day. They're just getting there an hour earlier. It got adjusted real quick, and I've gotten nothing but compliments on this company. And I don't care if you're black, white, or brown, as long as you're doing a great job for this community and the taxpayers. How dare any of us question looking at behind the scenes contracts? I apologize for that request. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner
Stacy did.
Commissioner Fuller, did I ask?
Started earlier.
Did I ask Commissioner Fuller? Okay. Commissioner Warburton?
Yep. Mr. Wiggins, before you took the contract, my number one call was yard debris pickup and garbage pickup. And so with 1 month under our belt, those calls have drastically gone down. So for 1 month of service, I appreciate that and look forward to comments, positive comments instead of all the negative comments. A couple of just questions, and this may help citizens who are listening and paying attention. With the utilization of the subcontractor, how will a citizen see the difference? Will there be a different truck, or will the citizen even know the difference between the two entities providing service for them?
The citizen will know the difference. We actually our trucks are green. You guys have probably seen them. Our subcontractors' trucks are white. They will have his logo on them. They will actually have the customer service number is the same customer service number that we have on our vehicles. It's the ladies that you saw in the earlier slides, me and Amber, that will be fielding all those phone calls, as well as our route supervisors that are direct connect to Legacy C+C as well as Concrete Enterprises. So there is a visible difference in the two, the white garbage truck and the white with the black body grapple truck. That is C+C's equipment. Green equipment is Concrete Enterprises / Express Disposal.
But all the technology is the same. Your folks are monitoring the
100%
sensors and all that.
100%, and it's the same people with the new technology in place. Marvin and myself felt like it was the right thing to do for the same people to be monitoring, reporting to the city good, up-to-date information. So yes, his equipment is basically the exact same, different colors, different logo.
Okay, great. You know, I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I think as a city, you know, we should always be encouraging entrepreneurship, starting new businesses. So I appreciate what you've done to think outside the box, to help in that area of entrepreneurship. And not that it was a requirement, but also it's an additive that you was able to contract with a minority entrepreneur. And I really appreciate that. And thank you for thinking outside the box and encouraging businesses to thrive and grow and start up and that sort of thing. So I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. We're local. We want this community to thrive like all citizens here wants it to thrive. And we obviously want to be a piece of that to keep it clean and attract more people to come here.
Commissioner Langstaff.
No question.
Ms. Young.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Rowe and Mr. Laster. I guess what I want to clarify is I think the Mayor Pro Tem was speaking that we take minority participation in government contracts, you know, as a serious matter. And I would just say this, and I'm not casting any aspersion on anyone, but I do know that when we discussed this going forward, that we were told that there was a deal imminent with A1 Brantley, and we were told that that was going to get done, and that's what we were expecting. That was the expectation, and when that did not happen, we, you know, I know we had some concern, and I think that's what the Mayor Pro Tem is expressing here. When you say that something is going to happen to City Commission and make certain commitments, then we kind of expect that to happen, or at least need an explanation as to why that didn't happen. So that's all it is. It's nothing forward or anything negative. It's just something that when you make a commitment and that commitment doesn't go through, we just want to understand why that didn't happen. I think that's just accountability. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. I just want to say it obviously was not a requirement of the contract, but I think Concrete Enterprises represented they would make their best efforts to have minority participation, and I think that's what we're seeing here today. Mr. Wiggins gave us some information, probably too much information. I think Mayor Pro Tem's position as an advocate of minority business is understandable. This issue about seeing contracts or subcontractors, I don't really, you know, we'll let the folks worry about that. But I do want to commend Concrete Enterprises for partnering with Mr. Laster's business, and we expect big things in the future. And like I say, I didn't really want to get into the details, but it appears to me that A1 Brantley has a contract, and that at the same time Concrete Enterprises was negotiating with A1 Brantley, GLF was also trying to retain their services on some other projects. So they're working, and now we have a new minority contractor that's opening, and hopefully will be successful. in the coming years. So maybe this all in all is a positive development. But most importantly, I want to commend Concrete Enterprises on the service that has been delivered. And I do want to say I'm continue to be disappointed in GLF's performance in the last few months. I think we saw an intentional slowdown, and the frustration of the citizens was directed at this board. And I just want to say what y'all have done since we began the contract has taken a lot of grief off all of us. And thank you for your presentation. Mr. Rowe, did you have anything you want to add?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioner. The one thing I would add, we had fallen behind with our contract with Trans Waste, and I got to commend Craig and all of his team. In a month's time, they've got everything called up. Phone calls to complaints have really turned to compliments that I've gotten. So at this point in the contract, everything's going very well.
Yeah, I think some people might be a little paranoid when they go out to the trash can now, thinking there might be a camera inside it or something. But any further, Mayor Pro Tem, you want to make any further comment?
No further comments, but I will let an issue that came up be resolved after. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
No, sir. No other comments.
Commissioner Fletcher?
No, just thank you for a great job.
Commissioner Warburton?
No, nothing further.
Commissioner Langstaff?
Nothing further.
Commissioner Young? Okay, the next item on the agenda is a recommendation coming from the utility board for the purchase of, it's hard to understand, this network storage devices. And two of them, it's at a cost of $249,839. Ms. Fields, you want to give us some information on that, please, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
I can give you the information about how we're making the purchase. That is through a Dell State contract. And I can tell you what the amount is, which you've already said is $249,839.30. And Mr. Carter can tell you what it is we're buying.
Okay. Mr. Carter, you have the floor.
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. The purchase of this storage device is to facilitate the move from 207 Pine to the new Pace building. It is the storage devices that will be used to store all the data and other information that the city and county accumulates over the course of its business day. The reason we're asking for this purchase ahead of everything else is because of the lead time required to get those devices in. If we wait until everything else flows through and then place this order, that's going to put us way behind in that process and therefore delay the project considerably. But again, the storage devices are just the hard disk that are used to store the day-to-day transactions of the city and county.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Any questions, Mayor Pro Tem?
No.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes, sir, Mr. Carter. Is that will those just be used for the transfer, or will that be something that we'll use on a day-to-day basis once the transfer has been made to the Pace building?
These will become the primary devices for our storage as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Mr. Fletcher?
No comments.
Mr. Warmington?
Yeah, a couple questions. Is this purchase, would we be pursuing these devices if we stayed where we're at, or is this purchase primarily for the move to the Pace building?
It's facilitated by the, we got some echo here, but it's facilitated right now by the fact that we're trying to move. However, storage is something that we have to purchase on an ongoing basis at some point in our future. This would have been a purchase that we would have brought to the commission, just not at this time.
Okay, so it's basically, it's accelerating the purchase to go ahead and move forward with that. And you mentioned city, county. Are we going to ask the county to contribute to this purchase at all?
Yes, sir. Based on the working agreement between the city and the county always participate in all of our purchases. I think it's about 36%. You have to get with our finance director to get the exact amount, but it's somewhere in the 36% range that the county participates in our purchases.
Okay, so they'll be 36% of this 249 is what they'll be paying for.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So one of my questions was going to be about SPLOST spending, and I think you kind of answered that. I had a concern that we were using SPLOST dollars for an enterprise business, but it sounds like this device is really being used for city county business, and so that kind of passes the muster of SPLOST spending, which kind of leads me to another question: is why did this come through the utility board? If this is, I know it's through our fiber business, but it sounds like this is more of an IT but I mean, I guess it's here but in front of us, but I'm just trying to keep a clear line between SPLOST spending, which is government citizen sales tax spending. And I feel like this, the way you described it, definitely applies to that. And so I just don't think it should be appropriate for the utility board to make recommendations on SPLOST spending when that's more of a government pot of money. But I guess that can be for a later date to discuss that.
Do you want to answer to that?
Sure.
Ms. Subadan, could you explain why this went before the utility board?
I think I do need to clarify. There are times when we use SPLOST for utility board functions. Some of those were specifically voted on the referendum. So as an example, we have sewer projects. Sewer is part of our utility, and they're SPLOST projects. So those would go through the utility board. I guess as we think about it, a lot of what we do inside of our technology department is, supporting the utility. And I think that was kind of our thought as we brought it, because, there are sort of two parts to this project, as you know. So I think that was our thinking when we brought it to the utility board.
Yeah, I mean, certainly utilities that serve the majority, if not all, citizens like sewer, that is appropriate for SPLOST. But fiber optics is more of only serves a very small amount of actually it serves primarily commercial customers. But I was just concerned about that. But I think the way Mr. Carter described it is not a point of contention for this at this moment, but just going forward, being careful what's SPLOST, what's utility board, what's for an enterprise that services a very small amount of our citizens versus, sewer, certainly that's services all citizens. So
we'll look at it carefully as we go forward.
Okay. All right. That's it, Mayor. Thanks.
Commissioner Langstaff.
No questions.
Okay. Commissioner Young.
No questions.
I just want to observe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Carter, that the manufacturer gives you a 3 years monitoring. That's included in the price?
That's correct, sir.
And could you explain how they monitor the operation of the storage device?
Actually, we're doing the monitoring. What they're doing is providing the services if there's a discrepancy with the product. So they give us 24/7 next day replacement if there's a discrepancy. So anytime within that 3 years, if one of these products should fail or some portion of this product should fail, they'll be on hand to take care of it.
Okay, so it's more like a warranty. I misspoke when I said that they would be monitoring the operation of the device.
That's correct, sir.
I apologize for that. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Carter. Appreciate your presentation. Next is the city manager's update.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to try to share my screen. I don't know if you have noticed, but we've changed the format of the city manager's update. Let's see if this works. right. Can you see the screen share?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mayor, can you see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what I really wanted to show you was, I'm not going to go through all the items, but what we've done is to modify the report. We've made it mobile friendly. So it's a link on your email. I know you're all very busy people. So if you don't have time to sit there and look at a Word document and read through a Word document, sometimes it's hard to see that on a mobile device. We have gone ahead and transitioned it to this format, which is mostly bullets. We've made it mobile friendly and lots of information in here. It's also on our website now on the city manager's page, because we also recognize the need to keep our citizens informed, particularly of the status of projects. So my point in sharing this was to let you know what the city manager's update looks like. Trying to make it more user-friendly for you and also for our citizens. And you recently, one of the things that was brought to my attention is the need to make, for example, our financial reports more user-friendly. So this is an attempt to try to make it easy for you to keep up with city projects. And if you have any feedback or you don't like it or you'd like us to do something different with it, I certainly would like your feedback.
Anything else?
Nothing else at this time. I believe that we're gonna have an executive session. So I am gonna sign off. Stephen's gonna pick up for me here. And are you having the executive session?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I think we're running late for another meeting, but I will see you there. Unless anybody has any questions for me.
Yeah, let me go through the round the table one time. Mayor Pro Tem, any questions for the city manager?
That's for items for future generations.
No. We'll get that next. Any questions from Mr. Subban?
No question.
Commissioner Fuller?
No questions.
Commissioner Fletcher?
None.
Commissioner Warrington?
Yeah, one thing, and Ms. Subban, this is, again, based off of phone calls and messages I get from citizens, but I understand Oxford with their street paving, I get a lot of questions about why are they doing this? Why are they over here? They repaired a curb over here and there's barrels that's out and then they're paving over here. And I'm not insinuating at all that they're not doing a good job, but from a citizen standpoint, who's just, looking at the tapestry of the artwork that's going on, I get a lot of questions about that. And I don't know going forward how we could do that better or differently so there's not a lot of confusion about working this area and complete this area before you move over to this area. But just wanted to express there's just a lot of confusion and questions in the community about that. I mean, we're all happy when your street is paved, but it's kind of like making sausage. It didn't make a lot of sense as it's being made, but we all like the final product. But I just wanted to express that something maybe future we might want to think about how we roll that out next time, or how we instruct them how to move forward. I don't know if you have any comments or things to about. That's kind of an open-ended statement, I guess.
I guess we can bring back kind of an explanation of how it's done, and that may help. So for example, manholes end up getting done last. And so there'll be like barrels sitting around the manhole, but they come back with a different crew and they raise all the manholes at one time. So maybe what we'll do is an educational piece. We used to also have a map on the website so we could help people to know. I noticed it's not on the homepage, so we will put it back on the homepage. But I think maybe what we'll do is give a quick overview of kind of paving 101, because, for example, they'll be out with a different crew doing all of the curb and gutter work ahead of the milling work, which happens ahead of the manholes. So it is a process and it is making sausage, but what we can do is be more helpful to citizens so they understand how each of the processes work.
Yep. Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Commissioner Langstaff?
No questions.
Commissioner Young?
No questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Subadan. The next is items for future agenda. Mayor Pro Tem.
Ms. Subadan.
Oh, I think Mr. Collier's taking over.
Mr. Collier,
Yes, sir, Mayor Pro Tem.
how you doing?
Doing good, sir.
Can you pass on to code enforcement and the police chief that there are several streets in East Alabama on weekend are turning into those dirt bikes throughout the whole area? And the areas are up there on Malone Street and Lakewood subdivision and the 2600 block of Rosebriar. And the 700 block of Mobile Avenue is where a lot of those dirt bikes are cutting across residential areas up in that area, going to the sand dune.
I got it, sir.
Okay, and also with code enforcement, they probably sometimes need to work on weekend. In the old Winn-Dixie Shopping Center, every weekend there are semi trucks being parked there overnight, and they leave the trailer there. So that's a problem throughout the whole city. And these vacant parking lot. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I got it.
Mr. Fuller.
No, sir, nothing further.
Commissioner Fletcher.
Well, I have two things real quick. One, Nathan, this might be you, or and I do want to clear up when I asked that about the shooting in 2018. Not that I think it's a business's fault if someone goes in and does a shooting, but I would almost like to, if we're looking for a place to put a business, I would like to almost know the activity that's been around there, because that would give me an opportunity to get out into the neighborhood and let me know how the people feel, even if it's zoned or not. So if that's legal, I'd like to see that, or maybe Norman, you just do it to me off the record. But speaking of code enforcement, Commissioner Howard, I've run into this just the other day about 6 o'clock. I had a very good business in this community call me, and there was some illegal installations of an air conditioner going into a person's home, and they were without a license, without a permit. And to make a long story short, thank goodness Robert Carter answered his phone at 6:15, went around there and called them, and made them do it right. And I'm not going to say what company they were with, but we've got 3 positions, if I'm correct, of we're hiring for code enforcement. And Mayor, I'd like to see us stagger one instead of everybody coming in 8 to 5, because we actually have companies and we have people in my line of work that will bring out grills after 6 o'clock because they know the health department gets off at 5. We're having the same thing with code enforcement. Let's do some installations after 5 because code enforcement's closed. So could we look at somebody, 10 to 6 or 12 to 8, maybe stagger some of their hours? And on weekends is when a lot of this happens because they know code enforcement does not work. So if we could look at that, Steve or Mayor or ever who would take that, I think it would help if these people knew that code enforcement is a 24-hour department. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Have we got that, Mr. Collier?
Yes, sir. I took notes on all of it. Chief on. We'll compare our notes and we'll address it.
Okay. I think you could have one employee every 3rd week work
weekends.
Yes, and then work from 3 to 8, and then on weekends. But we can work that out, I'm sure. The question I have, Mr. Fletcher, it's understandable when we're asking Mr. Norman, his process of bringing us the information. As I said, if the location's been dark for a year, there wouldn't have been any incidents. But then again, how far back do you want Mr. Norman to go? 36 months, 24 months?
Well, you know, and I will say that I probably dropped the ball on this because it is my area, and I knew of the shootings on Madison, et cetera. But it was a delayed reaction on my part. It just sort of jogged my memory. Wait a minute, something's happened there. I mean, I think I guess the year is still good. I don't want you to go through anything extra. Just but maybe if you know it's a troubled area, just almost an alert to us so we can get out in the neighborhood and I don't know. I dropped the ball on not realizing what that location was, and so you know I would just ask if it is a problemed area of Norman or Chief. Could you maybe say, you know, they're applying for a liquor store here? Not that I think that a liquor store causes problems. You know, churches have had murders, but just if it seems to be a continual problemed area like this is, because I know some of the shootings we've had, Chief, if I'm not mistaken, is sort of centered around this location. Maybe if we could get a little heads up, I would appreciate that.
I mean, but there again, do we want calls to that location for 24 months before the application, or 36 months, or just are you asking that they generally let you know that crime's been a problem in this area?
Just that crimes have been a problem in this area.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Commissioner Warrington.
Yeah. So from a positive standpoint, it is exciting to see all our different task groups meeting. A lot of work's being done behind the scenes. From a new agenda item, and the city manager's already. I'm getting some echo. Are you all? Okay. So our public safety committee is probably the most public of all the committees, and so you might have seen on the news or the media. We will be presenting to the commission next week on a couple of things that we're wanting to move forward. So I was hoping we would get the award for the first committee, but the EMA committee beat us to the punch today. They were the first committee to report back. But so one of the major items we're going to be talking about is gunfire detection. So I kind of want to go ahead and put that out there. It was in the media last week. Get it out today. That is what we're going to be presenting to the commission next week as one of the major items we want to move forward. And of course, the chief is going to have a whole lot more to talk about, and the city manager is going to talk about the funding of it, possible funding. So just want to kind of put that on your radar that we are excited. And for the community to know, our public safety committee is meeting where we've got new initiatives, even the alcohol questions we were just talking about. That is one of our topics in our committee is what new information do we want to share. We have our annual renewal that's going to be hitting our commission here shortly. So we've had conversations about what do we want on the annual renewal of all the licenses, what's the new information. So all that's being talked about and churned up in our group to bring our recommendations to the large commission next city commission meeting. So just want to put that out there. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Langstaff?
Nothing.
Commissioner Young?
Yeah, just a couple of things. One, I guess in terms of the subcommittees, I know we were supposed to be meeting for the quality of life subcommittee at 12. Doesn't look like we're going to be able to meet that time frame. So maybe we need to talk about when we're going to reschedule that. The other thing I did want to ask to see if we can get a report from, I guess, Albany Utilities in terms of the meter, the new meter rollout. I do know I've gotten several calls about, after hours reconnects, and it's starting to get colder. And really those new meters are going to pay some strong dividends to make sure people can get reconnected and the other things that of value that they bring. So I want to just know where we are with that. People are really anticipating that. And also I just want to send a shout out to all the voters of Dougherty County. We had a record turnout in this election, and we should be very proud of ourselves because of what we've gone through in the pandemic, and people even coming out in the pandemic to cast their votes. We've done something great and marvelous, and I thank the public for getting out there and exercising your right. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Young.
Just about our quality of life, I think what we typically said was we just meet when the commission meeting's over. So So I think Commissioner Fuller's on, and you and city managers here, and Mr. Forgy. So I think the expectation was we would just meet whenever the meeting's over. But if we need to reschedule, we can. Okay. It was kind of a floating time.
Okay.
Okay. With that, the chair would entertain a motion to go into an executive session.
Also move to go in executive session, talk about job performance, personnel, and also pending litigation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Any discussion?
No discussion.
Mr. Fuller, any discussion?
No discussion.
Mr. Fletcher, any discussion?
No. No.
Ms. Warburton, any discussion?
No discussion.
Mr. Langstaff, any discussion?
No discussion.
Commissioner Young, any discussion?
No discussion.
Ms. Hicks, would you call the roll, please?
Ward 1.
Yes. Yes.
Ward 2.
Yes.
Ward 3.
Yes.
Ward 4.
Yes.
Ward 5.
Yeah.
Ward 6.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.